Well, I got Jolly Ranchers if you need something there like that.
He's got a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
But we had dinner and he told me.
Okay, yeah. No, he's been great. He also has been really good on the follow through with the work that he did through the Las Cruces. He had so much good information and just feedback from the community just through that one big effort and event. And so that was really wonderful getting us off the ground for our project. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
small work.
It is, the folks in the city though that we've worked with, have all been pretty good so far.
Yeah, I used to work for the city many years ago.
Okay, which area?
I was the EEO and trading outside, their complaints.
Yeah. You see a certain lens of the community in that way, but yeah, we kind of shuffle around between parks and recreation, planning, and economic development primarily. But I don't know if you know Kathy Matthews. She's been in parks and recreation forever. Yeah, she's such a good stronghold there as well. I really appreciate her perspective on.
Everybody has a new community development.
Hey, Rex, how are you?
It's totally.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, that one has been a big struggle. For just this year, I guess.
She was around?
So still getting to know folks who are there now.
So good.
No, it's good. That's my primary work that say to some of my coworkers I was teaching. That's a lot of projects around. In this case, recreation complexes. My coworker who's sitting next to me, that's been her baby for the last 3 or 4 years.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great, I'm curious to see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
Very positive.
Absolutely. And we're trying to bring some of that back with the acknowledgement of, things have shifted a lot in the city in order to make the most of its investments. They have to be really targeted and where it's investing at, but just the streetscape design alone would be huge. And so we're focusing on a couple block sections to get things going, and hopefully that momentum will build. And the other big thing is kind of shifting the higher speed traffic. We want to slow things down a bit there out to Main Street. So hopefully it's not as dangerous. I mean, that's the thing. It's a very dangerous pedestrian corridor. So we're trying to target these.
I have a hard time crossing streets.
Yeah.
Even in the crosswalk.
Right. Yeah, Elvis in Idaho. Idaho is also kind of emerging as one that we really can't neglect in this process either, because it's in the area and it's also very dangerous as a corridor. So, yeah.
I didn't turn on that mic.
But I'll turn it on once we get going here shortly.
We'll pull some of these maps back out and get some work boards, we call them. So we're just going to dig into them to get this too. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. How are you? Okay. Been a little rough. Okay, how are you? Thank you.
I just didn't know where you're sit, so.
I was over.
Wherever it's gonna be.
No,
Richard.
yes.
Oh, no.
Not as much. I think he definitely works with the stakeholders on your project, so that's my recommendation. Okay.
Thank you. Because, I was looking at this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
I think it's a good option, having it.
You have a good holiday?
Uh-huh.
You have a good holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself? Good.
Yes.
Huh?
Kids around holiday time. It's crazy sometimes. It's a good thing.
It's different.
It's a good kind of crazy.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
previous years that, you know, I loved Christmas lights and things like that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
now it's like, how can I surprise the kids? And
It was too late for us to
make it to where they're like, they're the ones saying,
So take it to a whole different level,
you know,
right? And then,
home with technology, you know, you might have to dress up as Santa to actually be Santa to show that Santa does come. It's a little ridiculous.
Curious to see how that would work in a small.
oh,
Yeah, and you can definitely.
Good times.
oh,
I think there's a lot of really good.
oh, I'm glad. I mean, I was just thinking of it like fun. You know, that's what Christmas, you know, the kids, you know, not having any. I mean,
It's like Halloween. Halloween used to be one of the holidays I feel like I enjoyed it when I was a kid, but at the point where you grow up and you don't have Halloween anymore, that's the way I was. But now it's kind of like, you know, I think Halloween's my favorite holiday now because it's just it's fun. And just to watch them go run around house to house and dress up and then
It brings it all back.
we dress up as a family and it's just like, okay.
Oh, I think that's great. I'm envious. I think it's wonderful. I know it's a lot more work now. You know, you can't be like me and just sit in your pajamas all day.
What are you talking about?
What am I thinking? Yes, you're absolutely right. You're right, it's Christmas.
I mean, that's all it's
Even if you do have family come over, you can still stay in your pajamas. That's true. Yeah.
You come to my house. Now, if I go somewhere else, it's a different
That's what
story.
it's, yeah. And even then, it might not be.
Might not.
Might not be at all. I think it's great. Trickling in. So you know who you are?
Well, I went to the winter social and then,
I
you know how many classes I lost semester? Next year,
Oh my gosh.
in case somebody finds them.
Oh, that was the one.
Yeah, that was a previous one from
23rd.
Christine. All right, everybody's here. So just to kick things off, today is Monday, January 13th, 2025. Welcome to the new year. And the time is now 5:01 in the evening. We are here for a work session that is being done by Sites of Southwest. Ms. Danny here. I'll let her do an introduction, and this is concerning our 2025 comprehensive plan with the LEDA component.
That's great. All right. Well, good
Turn it over.
evening. Yeah, if that's okay. I'll just dive right in. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and for making extra time for this working session. I'm glad we have it because there's a lot to dig into, even though we're right at the beginning of this process. But before we do that, I'll start with some introductions and I'll try to project so everybody can hear me. I'm Danny Wilson. I am a project manager at Site Southwest. We're a consulting firm who primarily focuses on planning and landscape architecture projects. We've done a lot of work in Las Cruces, and fortunately, too, we have some good familiarity with Mesilla because we did the last comprehensive plan in 2017. So Phyllis Taylor is my boss, and she is also guiding and advising on this project and brings a lot of really good historic knowledge to the process so that we're not building from scratch. Also on our team, we have another planner named Allie who got sick and couldn't join us tonight, but you'll see her in future visits when we come back to the community. And then Russell Doss is our engineer who's advising us on infrastructure changes and transportation recommendations. He'll be virtually joining us over the next few days for staff meetings and also advising there accordingly. So with all of us on board, we're really hoping to guide and facilitate this process over the next year or so to bring about the vision that you all have for Mesilla and to really gather that input beyond key stakeholders, leadership to residents and community members who have a say in this process. So tonight, for our working session, I'm hopefully going to be providing just a very brief overview to what the goal of this is and what the purpose is and some of the parameters around the work that we're doing. We'll look at that timeline overall and kind of where we fit into that. And then we'll dig into some of these plan elements. And I want to hear from you all as leaders for what you hope to see and what you see as kind of these foundational questions around key assets in the community, issues, ongoing projects that you want to see come to fruition, and then looking to the future, kind of that vision for what's ahead. And also I'll be here for many, many questions if you guys have them, hopefully. So I'm just curious, I know I've spoken with Trustee Navarez already, but I'm curious if any of you all were involved in the last comprehensive planning process.
I was a commissioner in planning and zoning.
Yeah, I was a trustee.
Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. So this won't be totally foreign ground here. So I'll just quickly go through. This is a really critical document, and it's important that it's updated frequently because things can change so much. We were just talking, the mayor and I, before this meeting, and COVID happened in the last several years. That shifted a lot for every community, not just in New Mexico, but across the US. And so we're looking at important shifts that happen because of that and what communities can do to move forward on a positive trajectory, to move forward proactively rather than reacting to these things. And this is one of those documents that can help to guide that process. Importantly, it should be something that's aligned with your ICIP. It should bolster that and provide additional support when you're going to seek funding, not just for ICIP, but for really any grant funding from the state or federal government. And then finally, it should provide a pretty clear direction in terms of how to prioritize whatever the projects and actions are that we collectively come up with, and give you some direction in terms of who's going to take charge of those actions and projects, what are some resources that we can identify to help make them happen, and how can we realistically begin to phase that out over the next 20 to 30 years. That's about the timeline we're looking at. So I just touched briefly on plan elements, but these include some of the things that you're probably already very familiar with. Looking at land use, so zoning, your codes and ordinances, all the things that go into that. That's a really important element of any plan. Tied to that is economic development and LEDA. That's something that communities are really encouraged to revisit, especially as things shift at the state level. And it opens up what is possible for LEDA funding. We'll look at the housing component, which is, again, it's just one of those things that overarching, this is nothing new to Mesilla, but we're kind of in a housing crisis. And so how are we handling that internally? How do we make sure that we're allowing residents who want to stay here to stay and age in place, while also welcoming in new residents as it's appropriate and where it's appropriate, and growing at a scale that makes sense for Mesilla. We'll be looking at cultural and historic preservation. I think this is something that's really foundational, and that even in my initial conversations with stakeholders and folks in the community, this is a huge underpinning for this plan. We want to make sure that we are getting the identity of Mesilla correct, and that we're also opening that up for the future so that everyone who has an idea for that can help shape that and take part in that. We'll be looking at community facilities and services. This is a lot of the bread and butter stuff that the town does. So senior services, youth services, the community center, all of that stuff is kind of tied into that. Events that the community has, both for residents and for tourists, we'll look into that. Transportation and infrastructure are probably the least sexy, but the most foundational to any plan. We want to make sure that there's a really good plan moving forward for maintaining Messilla's infrastructure, especially knowing it's such a historic place, and just ensuring that water services, utilities, all of that is in good shape for the future. And then finally, the last thing that we look at is hazard mitigation, which can mean a lot of different things to different communities. We look at risks for drought, wildfire, severe weather events, things of that nature, which for, a lot of New Mexico, water is kind of this key feature that we'll be talking about there, and how to begin to think proactively about that as a resource that we want to preserve and kindle into the future. So I mentioned briefly the timeline, but overall, I'll say we started this, we kicked things off back in late November of this year and had a little bit of a blur with the holidays, but we're starting with conversations with people. And so we're reaching out to stakeholders in the community. We're starting with you all as leaders to understand at the highest level what are some of the key issues and opportunities here. From there, we'll be gathering a lot of this information from broader perspectives. We're having a larger community workshop tomorrow night, and then we'll be having a survey and another check back in probably in 2 months to give others more opportunities to weigh in. We'll be checking back in probably around March with another probably meeting with you all just to see where we're at and to give you an update on what we've heard from the community so far. And from there and through that process, we'll be drafting the plan. We're hoping to wrap things up by August. So that'll give you a rough idea of where we're headed. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and maybe just open it up. Do you have any questions for me before we dive into some of the activities?
Well,
Yeah,
since
go
we're
for it.
involved in the last one, comprehensive plans are only as good as the follow-up. So
Definitely.
I'd like to know, I have a copy of our comprehensive
Yeah.
plan,
Yeah.
but honestly, I don't know how much it actually comes into play when we're
Yeah.
actually making day-to-day decisions or week-to-week decisions.
Right.
Sometimes it's used as
Right.
ammunition, for lack of a better term, right this
Sure.
second,
Yeah.
to plan or to, facilitate someone's idea. But I'd like to have like a status of what we've done or how much we've deviated from the
Yeah.
plan in 2017
Yeah.
and from the plan before that, because I do think that's important. That I think, and it's rightly so, we have we want our youth to really understand what has happened in the past. I kind of feel like a middleman because I feel like our grandparents and great-grandparents kind of established a lot of things, and then we were kind of in charge of preserving certain things or making things move forward, and then obviously we like to hand it off to the youth in a condition that is productive, right? And comprehensive and something they can work with and use for the future and not just have words on paper.
Definitely. So you brought up a couple of really good points there, actually, that I wanted to touch on. So the first was, I think it's important to know when the previous plan happened. So I was telling the mayor and others, oftentimes communities don't get around to updating their comprehensive plan for like 20 years. That's what we see a lot of the time. So the fact that this is being updated eight years after it was written is a good sign that leadership is being proactive about updating this and making sure it's still relevant. But it also means that we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. I think there's a lot of good information there. Probably the town has not had time to act on every single recommendation in that plan. And so we have a sense of what some of that is, but we're working with staff primarily to get a sense of what the status is of all of those projects. So we're meeting with staff actually tomorrow morning, and that's something that we're going to do is go over some of these, not totally belabor it, but it is important to know where we are on those projects. So some of them might be 50% done. Some of them maybe haven't been started. Some of them maybe have been easy, check off the box. We're done with those. And probably there's more that we want to add to it. So that's kind of how we're looking at the previous plan is it's a building block to get us to this new plan. And so we won't throw everything out with it, but it definitely needs to be updated.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do we get that information as,
Yeah.
you said, leaders in the
Yeah.
community? Like, where are we? What have we done since 2017?
Totally.
And what did you take,
Yeah.
I mean, what did you, I would like to know how much
Yeah.
of 2017 was based on what was already done previous to that, since you were here, since your organization was
yeah.
here, you know,
Yeah.
a little bit. I mean, just an
Yeah.
overview, something fast, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing work intensive, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a status report makes sense. That could be a good deliverable after that.
Just because we obviously are representing residents, right?
Right,
And,
right.
the entire town.
Yeah.
And we've all come from different backgrounds and so forth, so I'd like just to know where we're.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's really important. It is interesting when you take plans that are 20 years old and sometimes it's like people don't even know. They're like, we have no idea what's happening here. But 8 years is not that long, so I'm sure it'll be a lot more fresh in memories. So yeah, that's a good point. Any other questions before we jump in? Okay, perfect. So I will say some of these questions, we're gonna start high level and then we're gonna get more into the plan elements, if that's okay. And I apologize, Sheree, there are a few that are probably a little bit repetitive from what we talked about on the phone, so hopefully that's okay. But first, I wanted to hear from your perspective as a representative of community members, what are you hearing from your constituents as the main priorities for the town today?
I think historic preservation and our greenbelt are one of the biggest conversations, but I think things have shifted as far as resources when it comes to the greenbelt. And just maintaining or finding funding for historic projects and continuing with that.
Definitely historical preservation. And I'm still hearing the green belt, the preservation of the green belt, and the people who reach out to me still want to maintain that green belt.
You know, I think infrastructure, I think what's the plan to keep, roads and water and lights and all that. We don't have a lot of underground electricity.
Yeah.
Which is probably something we should look to. Part of our town has septic tanks instead of, just things like that type of infrastructure. I mean, what outside of the Central, the plaza, how much attention does it get infrastructure wise and so forth. So, I mean, that's kind of just the day-to-day people in this, and especially what you said, hazard mitigation, kind of, what are the things that we learned from COVID as far as what was missing, infrastructure-wise even, to kind of keep on living in our,
Definitely.
when we're isolated. Like we don't, and I'm not proposing that we get a grocery store or anything. But, we have a convenience store. And that's it, and not that we can't get delivered by Amazon and so forth, but just some thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in relation to the preservation of agricultural, kind of, if you want to call it a green belt, like on University, a lot of the land that was there is no longer farmed. They become large acre tracts, I think 5 acres and things. And on Bouts, there's agricultural land there. You have some, and then you have the Avenida de Mesilla, the entry from Las Cruces and the entry from the south. And I talked to you about this, about developing an overlay zone for some of these areas so that we can manage what goes in there. Instead of reacting to things going on, we would have a plan as to what would be appropriate in this area. So an overlay zone on University Avenue as it comes in from the Las Cruces side and also on Bouts. And if we wanna, I mean, in the past, they've talked about developing the commercial zone all the way down, I call Highway 28 all the way to 4 Points. How would that look and how would that work? We should have an overlay. That's what we would want to see in that area.
Right.
Same thing coming in from the Las Cruces side.
Yeah.
So those are things. The other things I hear is the traffic congestion, the black parking, all these things. Some areas, pedestrians have to share the roadway with vehicles. So there's no sidewalks. You can't even walk on the side of the road. There's nothing. The property lines run all the way to the edge there. So some of those things are so. And I gave you a long list before. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's good to have the group discussion though too, because it can kind of stimulate other ideas. So
Yes.
it's okay.
Well, I mean, just
Yeah.
the green, talking about the green belt, we have to, I mean, water is a big deal because we're losing
Definitely.
the green belt because it's not profitable to even, I mean, people cannot keep up their,
Right.
even their pecan trees, which are supposedly very profitable. I mean, they, for some reason, they're dying.
Right.
People are letting them die. They either don't have the expertise or the motivation or whatever to keep them up. And what could we do to support that or to replace that and still
Right.
keep it green or
And that's what I envision, how to keep it
That's
green
what
with it. No, the idea of cottage industries came up, in the last meeting or one of the meetings,
Mhm.
forget which one. But could we, in these areas, have a plan where what kind of cottage industry relating to agriculture to go into these areas and to kind of sustain and support the agricultural aspects. And water is a big issue too, if we're looking at that. Some of these, like I said, on university, they used to be farmland, but because of the water issue, they're
Yeah.
and it's been years since they've been used.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Any other thoughts with relation to the next question? Okay. So this is something where we could begin to use the maps if you guys want to identify physical locations. And I will ask, I didn't print up enough copies for you to write directly on them, but I have a bunch of sticky notes if you want to label the area that you see or the spot. And so we have a blown up version of just a smaller part of the core part of town. And then we have a larger map of overall in the surrounding area. So choose the map that works best for you. But I wanted to ask next, what are some key assets within the community that you want to either preserve or enhance in the coming years? And these could be actual physical locations. It actually doesn't have to be a physical thing. You can think about this as an organization that is really essential to the community or something not tangible, or an idea, even a value that you want to preserve.
one of the things that I know, because I work at the university and I talk to people there and in the other communities surrounding Las Cruces.
Yeah.
One of the things they find, unique about Misia is our cultural events tied to the plaza. Whether it's the Day of the Dead, which is well attended, and on the 16th of September, the Cinco de Mayo, and some other events, and people really like to come to Misia. And so, how could we take these current events and develop them even further? They're usually focused around the plaza, but could they be involve other areas of town so that they kind of people could meander around the historic district?
Yeah.
So that's one idea that that might be worth pursuing is how do we preserve and expand some of these events that occur or cultural events that occur in the CM. And you're talking about a long-term vision, because you had a question there. I would like to see a cultural center in the CF where that we could have
Just curious, where was the bookstore? It
Well,
closed.
it was by the post office. It's
Okay.
now a private residence. It used to be
Okay.
the
Okay,
Fritzy
gotcha.
store.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah. It was our store.
The
Dead center.
Yeah, I was gonna say, move this up here a little bit.
Perfect, thank
There
you.
we go, yeah. Yeah, and I'll read it out just so folks can see. Maintain the historic core, both residential and commercial historic zones. Yeah, I think that's like a really good overarching goal for us to have through this plan. Yeah, there's an essence there that we just want to make sure it stays intact.
I mean, I'd like to see, I think it'd be important for us that anybody entering the area knows that they've entered the area. I mean, to make it kind of special or they've arrived and it's not just the plaza. I can hear the church bells from my house and I live way. So, I mean, so that we can kind of develop entryways, like from Calle del Norte. Because right now it's Avenida Mesilla, really.
Yeah.
And that's being built up commercially quite a bit. And it's great, I mean, for us to have all those commercial businesses that butt up right against Las Cruces, but it doesn't distinguish us. You don't know when you've left Las Cruces and into Mesilla.
Right.
And I think that's part of, and people kind of think they live in Mesilla like the Tierra Verde people. I mean, which is okay too.
Yeah.
I mean, not say that they shouldn't, but I'm just saying that that as we get bigger and as Las Cruces gets bigger and as we get surrounded, because at one time we were going to annex Mesilla Hills actually, that we didn't do, which may have been a good plan just so that we wouldn't ever be encroached by Las Cruces really. It would just be Doñana County. But anyway, just a thought that maybe we could think about how all the corridors into Mesilla, like Calle del Norte, Bouts, and not just Avenida de Mesilla, and then really think about the South. How many people do we want to bring? Maybe and University Avenue. We changed the name to Calle del Sur. For some reason, right?
Yeah. It's a nice well-rounded, you got, west, south, north, and
But anyway, just a thought of maybe we could develop, kind of wrap our heads around how do we want people to come into town and recognize that they're in town?
I have a question because you mentioned this, but are you looking at a physical thing like a signage thing?
I don't know.
Because, in some cities and communities around the country, they have very ornate gateways into the community, and you're entering in a special place. In Mexico, they have these colorful signs. Every city has them, and tourists like to go and take their picture. I've done it.
Yeah.
I have the sign because it shows where you're at. But is that what you're talking about?
Well,
or
maybe
something
so.
different?
In good, I don't want to get to
Specific.
every little city to look like every little city in the U.S. Right?
Yeah.
But because I want to absolutely stay away from that in some ways because I feel like sometimes we go towards that.
Yeah.
I want to just maintain a biculturalism.
Yeah.
A lot,
Yeah.
but like you said, they do it in Mexico. I'm just thinking, what could we? Is it a green space? Is it part of the plan for what you say? What do you call it?
Overlay zone.
Overlay zone. That we do something like that at the entry. I don't know, at the entryways of Calle del Norte, Bouts, University, all of those.
Yeah.
Highway 28, and Avenida de Mesilla, where we actually distinguish when they arrive.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, and I will say too, like, this is spaghetti on the wall time. Like, there's no bad ideas. Like, this is the beginning. So like, we're open to all of that, and we can like take this information and come up with examples and work with the community to understand again what are the things that are really resonating there too. But it just helps to get the conversation going. So
Right.
no bad ideas.
Because we really, we want, like you had mentioned, we want people to feel like they can stay and live here. So the gentrification part of it is scary for us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we also want to encourage business to thrive here and to have successful businesses and, those kinds of things. So we don't want not to be business friendly either.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a hard tightrope to walk sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, there's a way to do it, but I do think it helps once you have, to your point, when you have clear guidelines about, it's not this is something that we would welcome here. And there's ways that you can support it even like as the public sector to make sure that it happens. There's tools that you can use if you want to have certain kinds of businesses or cultural amenities added to your community. There's ways that we can do it. And so that's like the good thing. It's not like a hard no, it's just encouraging more of what you want to see. I was gonna say more ideas.
Yeah, right.
That's
Let's
fine.
get
Yeah.
all these ideas
Well,
down.
I'm just copying off of
Yeah, that's good too.
kind of what Trustee Nevada's, because we do have budget issues, but I mean, there are, like you said, avenues in which to gain the revenues to do things like this.
And I'll read it out loud if that's okay, just so people can hear it. Look at vacant lots for availability for parking, for cultural center, et cetera. Yeah, that's good.
Well, speaking about parking,
Yeah.
I think I spoke to the mayor about this. Right now, the highway department is using this vast amount of space over on Cornell University and Highway 28. I mean, and I think that, it's privately owned, but could have the potential that someday that the town of Mesilla could develop parking there. It's close enough where people could park and walk over, or we could figure out a way to shuttle people into the core of the plaza. Then you have the cotton gin area, which is now commercial zone, and so it has quite a bit of property. I mean, my vision there could, and it's privately owned, but it could someday we could have those cotton gin buildings, which are very historical. Because every town in this valley had a cotton gin because cotton used to be a big crop here. That's what we grew in our farm down the valley. But could we have something there that could be a kind of a drawing point for residents and visitors? So it could be a restaurant brewery type of a complex with an industrial look, and it has plenty of parking, so there could be another potential for parking. So how could we work with the private landlord property owners to develop these ideas? And I guess the funding would be important too, but how can we do that? Because there's very little property left around the plaza for commercial activity. So they have to expand out into that area if we're going to encourage more commercial. And again, we've mentioned that what kind of businesses and commercial activity do we want to encourage to come in? And does it fit in with our historical, cultural type of goals that Mesilla has? So I think there should be a vision for that kind of thing from 10 years from now, 50 years from now, what it would be, because things are going to change. I mean, I know people want to preserve Mesilla as it is, but it's already changed from when I was a little boy, So.
Right.
I think making a list of businesses that we'd like to see in the future.
Yeah.
And essential businesses that would benefit our community as a whole is something to look at too.
And residents, and
This is
some
actual
residents don't want to
Uh-huh.
see
This is
the
actual
big
thoughts.
chain stores come into
Yeah,
Mesilla. So
yeah.
what else?
I've already had
Yeah.
multiple conversations, but
But are there other
So we can
options
look
to
at things.
bigger grocery stores other than Walmart? Is there a smaller option to that? Is there an
Or-
essential store that would benefit us that that fit
Like
better.
Las Cruces has toucans. It's locally owned. It's a small little store. I mean, is that something that someday Mistia would want to have something small like that, that specializes in local? We have is it pharmacy that kind of has a little bit of that. Local products, things, local produce. I mean, but it's like, I mean, I think we should have kind of a vision for that.
Yeah.
And if we want to not transform the greenbelt, but find other crops that would be sustainable in that, then the farmers market is something that we have to focus on too, and finding people who are willing to do that and make that a bigger, since agriculture is such a huge part of our community, make that a bigger.
And just to tag along with that, because the university is an ag school, I mean, could we partner with the university as to how we can use that land for those, what I call the cottage industries? I mean, something I discussed with Mr. Salazar, but some of the property owners might want to develop like a lavender business and sell, and because they're popular in certain parts of the world, the lavender, so it's like but that was just an idea, but why not? If we want to preserve the agriculture, how can we do alternatives plants that are maybe low water usage? I mean, how can the university help us with their expertise as to the use of water and the plants that would be viable in some of these areas to preserve that green belt?
Absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah. And I did want to just read off to the new note that we have on preservation of individual properties and structures outside of the historic zones as well. So thinking about ag, barns, silos, other historic buildings too. I think that's a really good one as well. It's not just the historic district, it's the whole community really has a lot of those physical assets that, I mean, when you move through the space, it's very unique. It's not like every other community in New Mexico even. And then looking across the nation, I do think it's one of those things where it is something that's truly special.
Yeah, because there are some silos here that I think are worthy of preservation. Because again, they reflect back us to what we were as far as
Definitely.
Historically. So.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, the parking issue is a little bit, we really have to think broadly about that, because when events aren't happening, the parking lots can look very bad,
Definitely.
right? I mean, or they can look very, you know what I mean?
They're
Like,
just not activated.
they're not active, they're not, and they look, they're kind of nicer almost. Because we just added how many parking spaces that we're gonna add once that's done? 52, 30, 42?
30 total.
30 total will be added, because but how many were there in the first place?
A little over 20.
So there's gonna be 50. So, because I hear that too, when it's going great, for the fiestas, there's not enough parking and people get blocked in and people are going nuts and the parking, but when there's not, then all these empty spaces look empty, like nobody's comes, nobody's here, So we got to think of all of that, like what are our parking lots going to look like? I mean, can they serve another purpose? Can they have, even if we reserve something for parking, does it have something else on it so that it can bring people in or not look empty when we're not having a big deal? Yeah. Because otherwise it looks like we're not doing that much because it's empty.
Right. And I do think parking too is one of those things where it's a necessary thing, we need it obviously, but communities do see that fluctuation, like given an event, given the work day, the work week. And so it's making it so that you still have an activated street front, but also can accommodate ideally as much of that parking as you can. And for big events, I mean, we already kind of talked about this, coming up with alternative plans as well, really promoting shuttles if you can, thinking about when you expect those high numbers so that you have more options for people to take advantage of. Also with the completion of some of these trail systems, I know connecting to the city and other places, promoting alternative transportation that way for people who can and are willing to do that. It's, looking at the full menu of options rather than just the car. But to your point though about parking, I think something that it also ties back into the idea of the overlay zone. There's some design strategies you can promote to help encourage activation of the street front, keeping parking in place, but relegating it so that it's not the primary thing that people are confronted with when they enter your community. They're not just like a wasteland of parking lots. So I think that that's something that we definitely should take into consideration. Like, this is a need, but we don't want it to be the dominant feature when people are coming into the community. So,
Right.
okay.
Totally.
Well, there might be, to that point, there
Yeah.
might be a property that has a structure on it that has adequate land that could be utilized in conjunction with. So then we have multi-use of a property that could be, has potential if the town were to acquire said property.
Yes.
And maybe maybe it becomes a restorative effort as well for whatever structure is on that property, since we have a bunch of historical properties within.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, you just brought an idea, which I thought about before, but we have got to really bring in the nature people. I mean, we have the bosque, you know, and we have those, I mean, Calle del Norte just got these two really nice, a really nice trail.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have canals and stuff that people utilize, but if we could really accentuate that somehow, and they have, access to the desert mountain peaks and all of it here,
Yeah.
but that we would be kind of, something that makes us a goal, to go to the bosque
Yeah.
to use our trails here.
Yeah.
And to come in from Las Cruces in that way, like you said, alternative. But that to me, for the future, I think cottage industries, green belts, all of that is going to have to be around people. People like wanting nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of nature, because I live across the street, and across the street we have sheep. I'm just fascinated sometimes. They're standing across the street, staring at me, and they're back. But to have sheep, it's a really unusual feeling. You're in a town, but you have sheep. There's chickens down the road. There's people with goats, and they walk them around town.
It's Messia.
Yeah, that's something that you don't see in other places. The merger of these agricultural type of things with the community, and some of the tourists like to walk around and look at the sheep and some of the animals around.
It's generational. You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
And then
See
this
what
time
you're
of
doing.
year, those sheep start giving birth. Every morning you go see a new little lamb there. So and
Yeah.
people coming over and to see that.
Yeah. I mean, that's something
Yeah.
that
It's special, like walking on the ditch and seeing
Yeah.
that. I know that when I
Yeah.
walk my dog.
Yeah.
Ag tied into nature.
Yeah. Sort of the integration.
I go to places just to explore the trails.
And Donna thing was the Bustamante family. They used to have pygmy goats, and
Mhm.
they used to go look at them down the ditch road. You walk down the ditch.
Yeah. Although pygmies can be so sassy too. We used to have goats growing up, and so we had a few different breeds, and pygmies were always just the meanest ones. They were the ones that would run after us. But we had some Nubians and French Alpines too, and gosh, they were just the sweetest things. They'd follow you around like dogs. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
So what my vision is to see everything we're talking about and making Mesilla very unique, so that people would want to come here and spend money here. Go to the restaurants, go to the shops and things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a key point into all, I think, when mentioning the nature and the acting too, is what we've started over the last few years is really advertising and marketing the town.
Mhm.
And maybe that's where we evolve more into the nature part of it and really getting the word out there, utilizing True New Mexico and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's something that the good thing about enhancing and uplifting projects like this, when it comes to trail projects and marketing that, is it truly is, it's a benefit directly to the residents who are there as well. First and foremost, they have a way to move throughout their community, without a car if they choose, and to have that space in the morning. Oftentimes people are doing it already and it's just not so formalized, like there are social trails all over the place. But then also, yeah, you're right, it can be something that can promote the community more broadly. And ideally, by promoting in this way, you are adding to the traffic issues, it's like people can choose a place, just like go and park and then do whatever they need to by foot or by bike at that point. And so that's really good. So I know we're getting just a little bit short. You mentioned we might have more flexible timing, but I don't want to eat up too much of your time. So I might jump to the next question if that's okay, unless any final calls on what to preserve or uplift. Don't want to shift too soon. And there will be more opportunities. This isn't the last time you'll hear from me. So I do want to dig a little bit more into sort of pain points in the community and what could be improved. Are there any specific locations that are causing a lot of grief or heartburn for folks, or are there projects that are just like either they're desperately needed or they've been started and you've never been able to finish them? Just thinking through, like, what are those kind of first things that come to mind when we're thinking about improvements?
I think we've already talked on it.
Yeah.
The key is the parking.
Yeah.
But I'm of the belief that, when you come to an event here in Mesilla
Mm-hmm.
for one of our fiestas or for Christmas Eve, that you're gonna, not, the parking's an issue.
Right. Right.
For the most part, people are aware, but
Mm-hmm.
I like the shuttle idea you proposed. They do it in the city.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
like that to explore. But like you said, when there's not an event, there's,
Yeah.
I see plenty of vacant
Yeah.
parking slots.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing too might be that someone brought it up, some of our historical homes
Mm-hmm.
that are the adobe that really need care and attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're often just like absorbently expensive, like way too expensive for any individual or family to carry alone. Yeah.
Not talking about mine directly. Cracks in the, yeah.
Gosh, I feel like that
Well, say it again, like, what
Yeah.
is the problem? What are the
was
what pain?
Yeah, what are people talking most about when they're like, this is a really big issue that needs to be addressed? Yeah, and it could be a place again, it could be an idea, it could be,
I just think the pain is and I think if there's any way to, it's hard to address, but it's like almost like almost the fear of letting it get away from us. You know what I mean? Like, we sit here every couple weeks making decisions on what the next thing we need to approve or not approve. And it's scary because it's like, is this really the direction? Is this really the right thing to do?
Yeah.
We always have opposition on almost, which is good and healthy, but it's sometimes I think we need to have a broader view or more specific view, something to say moving forward is about making difficult decisions when something's proposed. When a private owner wants to do something that kind of doesn't fit. Can we make it fit? Can we do something? Is it part of the comprehensive plan that just doesn't fit the ordinance? Is it fit the ordinance? I don't know, something like that, because that is what, to me, in 10 or 20 or 30 years looking back, people would like to say, at least we thought about those things.
Right.
And you brought it up, that's when you say pain, yeah, it's decisions that are being made that are not in our ordinance.
Mm.
And not only liability issues, but propose or, it's not propose, it could lead to further detrimental decisions in the future
Right.
that cause us to
Right.
lose our historical integrity
Right.
that our ancestors have. I mean, I'm sixth generation,
Yeah.
1850s. I mean, there's a reason we have Messiah still here. It's because all of those people back then and subsequently kept the vision.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so being really clear about the vision and those values, knowing again that shifts over time with new generations, but some things definitely stay the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not related to my question, but I am kind of wondering actually if you guys might indulge me in just a conversation about key values, thinking about like when you talk to families and neighbors, like what are some of the values they bring up that you think should be important in guiding those decisions? I don't know if that's like relevant. I know I'm kind of shifting gears here, but just to think about it because like that's something that I think of when you want to be on the right track in making those decisions. And of course, these
Right.
plans should guide it, but really it should be the values that people hold that are guiding that.
I think my strongest is mine is my family and the history with here in the valley and what they've had that it's instilled in me to honor what they've done to preserve it.
And I think that's doing that means making sure that generations continue to live here and continue to invest here.
And I think some people, I guess as new generations, come up, that they not lose sight of where we came from, the history, and everything. How can we educate these generations that are coming after us to understand why it's important to preserve, the sense of community, historic preservation, the cultural preservation. I mean, we're talking about different things regarding culture, from the food recipes and
Belonging to Mexico?
People, yeah,
We belong to
and some
Mexico.
people don't know that.
Yeah.
So, but I used to talk to some people, a couple of guys that were lived here and they're no longer here, but they used to tell me the stories about the different structures and this. Yeah, but nobody's preserved that. I mean, they're gone, and it's like this is gone. And so some people wonder how you can educate these up and coming, the generations, the younger people about, some of these things. How can that be done in a way that would interest them?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a value. I mean, it's hard to instill value, right?
Yeah.
But it is a value. I mean,
Yeah,
we're talking
no.
about values. You said
No, that's what I mean, but it's hard to instill that without knowing the history, without valuing that something
Yes.
is important.
But within these families that I'm talking about, they probably talk to their children, but that's
Well,
very
I mean-
confined to those families.
Yeah, but we've been here a long time too, and I'm just trying to think. I mean, when she said value, I mean, it's all the things that everybody values, like family, putting a roof over your head, having enough to eat and drink, having a good job, all those kinds of things that people.
Well, those are economic values.
Well, they're
I mean, I'm
And they're
not saying it's
practical,
bad, but
and
it's
they're
economic.
practical,
Yes.
Yeah.
And what, I mean, other values, honesty,
Yeah.
friendship. I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm just trying to think here. We're spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else. I mean, what you were looking for in that.
No,
question.
it's
Yeah.
helpful, and it wasn't one of my questions I had planned. I was just thinking of it because of the way the conversation was going, and also what I'm hearing is that it's not just about us understanding what the values are today. It's kind of instilling these values that we hope will like bring the community to the future we want to see. If that makes sense. So there's like a stewardship educational component of that, so that
I think it's necessary.
yeah,
Because I
that
think
makes
it can
sense.
be lost very easily.
Yeah.
And one of the deep values in this community, especially on the older generations, is San Andino, the church. I mean, that's their gathering point. They might not come to the fiestas or the restaurants, whatever, but they go to church. And so that, I think it's a very unique kind of a thing. When I go to church there, and it's old timers and just, that are there.
No, Christmas Eve, I
Yeah.
didn't see anybody I knew. It's weird.
But the church is a big value here.
It was
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
So they must have been here at some other time. They always put goodies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the church is a big attraction here for the whole community, because I think a lot of people come in from out of town and go to church here.
Definitely.
Which is a good thing.
Right.
Because it's a
Oh, no, a
basilica.
lot of the parishioners are not from the city.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They come in from all over.
But,
Yeah.
but I think that's a good point, though. See, things come up just as we're talking, is that I think that even though, I mean, we don't want to be, but the church has always been important.
And at one time, the same person that owned the bookstore would partner up with
Yeah.
the priest at the church, and she brought, developed concerts in the church. La Batalla,
Yeah.
La Catrina. She brought back Los Pastores, I mean, different things. And people like to go to the church, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
but this was not a religious event, it was like more of a culture.
Right. Right. Well, and I think some spaces kind of transcend that. Like, it is absolutely a gathering space for the faith community first and foremost, but because it's a historic space, because it's an anchor on the plaza, I think you're right. I think it's a
But
community
people
space.
like to
Right.
look
Yeah.
at the interior of that church. I mean, you don't
Right.
find them in other churches in those streets because they've been modernized. I mean, they're all
Right.
modern churches, basically. So,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, and I know we could have more time. I don't want to eat too much into your schedule though. So I'm thinking actually, any more thoughts on that before I shift, I guess? Yeah. So my thought is actually, and you sparked this idea at the beginning with your question, because I had some of the previous plans goals that we were going to kind of go over and have a discussion around, but I think I want to do a little more homework before I send those back to you. After I meet with staff and after I've had a chance to kind of dig into it a little bit on my own, I will circle back, if that's okay, with some of that summarized as an update. And then if you have input on that as well, that will be a little homework piece maybe to put out there, is if you're okay with that, Mayor?
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, because I'm just thinking that would be more productive anyways for having that discussion rather than just diving into some of those goals.
I think that would be great to, what you mentioned, and then email us with that so that we can get back to you with our
Yeah.
individual thoughts. So I think that,
Well, if we need to do another work session, even if it's
Right.
virtual, then let's plan
We can do that.
how to do that. It's an easy
Yes.
thing to
Yeah.
get everybody around the table.
Definitely.
And this is important, so we need to spend the time we need on
And you have time, if you, like I said, we'll start immediately after,
I know.
however that is. So if you want
We
to
could
touch
go-
on something while you still have,
Yeah, we could go high level into the goals, but I almost think, I feel like it might
That's
be a
not too
little bit
much.
more productive once I've had a chance to hear from staff and dig a little bit more into what's happened
Great.
since 2017. So, yeah, if you all are comfortable with that, I think that sounds like a good way to move
But
forward.
we've had good discussions around this table. I mean,
Yeah.
They're, just sharing some of the
Yeah,
viewpoints and.
yeah. No, this was a really good starting point in thinking ahead and thinking about where we are today. I think for that retro perspective, I want to do a little homework first. So, yeah. But thank you guys for tonight. I really
Perfect.
appreciate your time and discussion and openness. So,
thank you.
yeah.
Looking forward to it. So let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and get our meeting going. Sound good?
Nice meeting you.
I know. I'm excited for tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, that's the way it should be.
No, that's you in person.
Table over there.
We'll just leave it here for right now because we might meet back here in the morning for the staff meeting. So we might do, we
Yeah,
might
it's
do
okay to
it.
leave this?
Yeah, we might just
I might
do
leave
that and
this,
just
yeah.
plan on it and do that.
If that's okay.
I'm gonna draw all over.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Have some
smiley
little
faces.
scribbles in the periphery there, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, I didn't even see
I
it.
might take a photo here, actually.
yeah, that's, yeah, I must be in there.
I just don't want to see it.
I can-
It's actually-
Yeah, right now we're trying to draw ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that easily. Yeah, that's no problem at all. Do you mind sending me an email? Just so I have,
Great to see you.
My name's Cole.
Cole and Danny. Great to meet you.
Yeah, I'll shoot you an email.
Sounds good.
Everything goes.
Did I spell it? We're gonna have a meeting tomorrow morning.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, are you guys sticking around for the meeting? Okay, I was gonna say, yeah, I might go, yeah, take a look later. Yeah.
One chair. Pull the chair.
Thank you. You did.
Yeah, and then I came back.
But because I was.
But I did the very first day, as my first beer, I think.
Funding for these?
Pass the test, I don't know.
Which is.
Very.
In November, just booked it.
Yep.
I was a little. Hats and stuff, but.
All right, everybody. Here we go. Today is Monday, January 13th, 2025. The time is now 6:03 in the evening. We are here at the Mesilla Town Hall for the regularly scheduled. Hasn't been a day. Can you tell? First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please stand.
I don't think so.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next order of business is roll call and determination of a quorum. Gloria, if you would, please.
Mayor Hernandez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Present.
Trustee Cadena, Trustee Johnson Burr, present. Trustee Nevares,
Present.
Mayor Rubino.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is any changes or approval of the agenda. And approval, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Nevares. And unless there's discussion or objection, the motion will carry with unanimous consent. Thank you for approval of the agenda as it's been presented. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda, which includes the work session and BOT minutes for our December 12th, 2024 meeting. PZHAC case 061930 for Parque de Cura to install triple-sided information center sign. PZHAC case 061931 for Parque de Commemorativo to replace an existing sign with the triple-sided info center sign. PZHAC case 061932 for the Mesilla Plaza to replace an existing older sign with the new triple-sided informational sign. PZHAC case 061927 at 1010 Calle de El Paseo, submitted by Kent Chen requesting approval to replace 4 windows in the RA zone. Approval for purchase requisition for final closeout for the Calle de Santiago project in the amount of $133,801.19, and approval for purchase requisition for Film Los Cruces Services Agreement in the amount of $10,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Johnson Burek. And if there is no discussion or objection, the motion will carry with unanimous consent. Motion carries. The consent agenda has been approved. Thank you for that. With the approval of the work session and BOT minutes for 12/9/24 meeting, PZHAC case 061930, PZHAC case 061931, PZHAC case 061932, PZHAC case 061927, approval of the purchase requisition for final closeout, and approval for purchase requisition for Film Los Cruces Services Agreement. Next item on the agenda is public input on cases. This is where we will give the public the opportunity to step to the podium to give input on the cases to be heard this evening. I do want to note that there were 2 emails that were sent in that need to be added into the minutes. One from Miss Catherine Walkinshaw, and then another one from Miss Dasa Bashava. And I did print out a copy of those for you as well, trustees. So public, if you have any input, please step to the podium, state your name for the record. Seeing as there is none, we'll move forward into our action and consideration. First item under new business for approval is Resolution 2025-16 for the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Johnson Burek. I will open it up for discussion, if any. And seeing as there is none, Gloria, if you would roll call vote, please.
Trustee Nevares.
Yes.
Trustee Johnson Burr.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick.
Yes.
Trustee Cadena.
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yeses.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of Resolution 2025-16. Next item on the agenda is approval of Resolution 2025-17 for the rules of conduct.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Johnson Burek. I'll open it up for discussion, if any. Seeing as there is none, Gloria, roll call, please, if you would.
Trustee Johnson Burr.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick.
Yes.
Trustee Cadena.
Yes.
Trustee Nevares.
Yes. Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yeses.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of Resolution 2025-17. Next up on the agenda is PZHAC case 061922 at 2928 Highway 28, submitted by Lucky's, which was previously the Shorties, requesting approval for a sign permit in the general or in the commercial zone.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Nevares, and I will open it up for discussion, if any.
Is there any history on when the signs for Shorties were put in?
Eddie, if you would, please.
Because based on what is being requested, it does not meet the current ordinance.
Yes, I do not have, at this time, I don't have any knowledge or information on when the Shorties signs were put in.
Because again, the ordinance might have been in place and it wasn't followed by the board, whoever approved it. So that's why I was just trying.
Sure, yeah, I didn't apologize.
Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
From what I recall, those signs were up when Shorty's opened. I don't remember the exact year. It was in 1990 something.
Yeah.
Because there was an original Shorty's and then they built their new building. And those signs, I remember. But I don't remember the exact year.
Okay.
Well, I have a question too about this whole thing. I mean, I understand that it's definitely not meeting the code, but it's definitely outside of it's our only convenience store. It pretty much looks like a convenience store, but I don't want to have a situation where we're going to make exceptions that they can have 18, 25 signs or whatever. I mean, I still think there's a way to preserve Mesilla and give them the signage that they need. I mean, they didn't even request signage change, I guess, till he started having economic issues or fraud claims that he was having to deal with because it was Lucky's and people didn't know it was Lucky's. So just in the pictures that you took, I mean, I can see where you have to have Lucky's, I mean, the name of the place in some places, but you took pictures of this one where there's like 3 right in front and none of them say Lucky's. I mean, they're like $15.99 for, I don't know, probably some kind of booze or something. I don't know. And then the ice machine and then something over on this side. I mean, I do think that there's room to say, hey, we don't have to be in Mesilla like every other convenience store, which, just puts up whatever they want, and sometimes it's quite obnoxious. I mean, that
Right.
we are trying to be special, right? So I think the Lucky sign is fine and obviously the price of the gas and are all good, but these other like signs that are just signs advertising, really. I think those we can ask and tell him that yes, Shorty's had them in 1996 or whatever, which I don't remember, but that we could probably not have them anymore. I mean, what can we do with this? I don't want. They're already up, right? I mean, the
remove 'em.
Luckies are already up, so everything that says Luckies, I'm totally okay with. But these other signs don't say Luckies; they're just, and they don't meet the ordinance. So I think we can come up with a compromise that says, because I don't want to say, I mean, I totally admire that the commission wants to look at this and say, what do we do for special kinds of businesses, right? And that might be, to me, just on that particular corridor, because we don't know that another building's not going to come up and say, well, we want to advertise like Shorty's does, right? I mean, Lucky's. Like Lucky's does, right? We want all that signage because we want to advertise like that too. We want to say that we have a $15.99 t-shirt or whatever, and we don't want them to do that because we want to preserve the signage situation. So I don't know what everybody else's idea. I don't know if there's a compromise here that we can say, yeah, you can keep all your signs up that say Lucky's, that advertise the price on your stuff, but we would like you to conform as much as you can to the ordinance and take down the, I don't know, 12 pack of something for $15.99 or whatever. What do you
I just
think?
Well, I'm just, you've got a commercial business right next door that is conforming to the sign ordinance. So now this is going to open up a whole, I know people say don't set precedents, but it will, because if we allow this business, just because it was done in the past, it's going to open up everybody else wanting the same thing. And again, you mentioned something else that I just lost my train of thought, but it's just not appealing. Oh, it was the special. I mean, we don't have anything in our ordinances that say this is special because it's a gas station. My whole thing is what I've been arguing the last few months is we need to follow the ordinances. And if they don't conform, then we need to amend the ordinances. But, again, Spotted Dog is following the ordinances. So that's just my thoughts.
How many total signs do they have up now?
It's written there. I believe I counted 14, 15.
I think,
but
yeah.
Okay.
The question is, when we spoke with the commission, we had the discussion is were there thought that the previous commission or the governing board was there a thought that a convenience store could need some sorry, excuse me, can't even look. Could need some additional regulations, right? One of the reasons why the signs are already up, right? The gentleman is new. He's more than happy to comply with whatever it needs. You gotta take them down, you gotta put them up. But I don't want to say purposely, but I was excited to bring this up for a discussion because at what point do we feel, or does the commission or the governing board feel that, hey, we should have foreseen this, right? And so we need to fix it, but do we deny this person's request, although we know that we kind of lost track of this part of the business? We only have 2 signs, right? If we're gonna comply with this code, 2 signs. We can't say, oh, just the Budweiser sign, or just the pump. According to code, 2 signs is 2 signs, right? So it's every sign's on a pump, every sign's on a building, all right? So if you want to go that route, then that route's going to have to be taken. There's only 2 signs allowed, right? And I don't really think that Lucky's. I'm trying to take away all the signs. I'm just trying to say the commission passed, approved it with the understanding, consideration is shortly after, we're gonna look at the amending this, sign. I believe the mayor is also working on a part of that, when it comes to, signage. Amending that because we, as a commission, as Ms. Young in general, did not foresee that part, right?
Did we have that discussion when the signage, another signage issue came up late last year about one of the applicants actually presented pictures of different businesses that had multiple signs.
Correct.
And then I thought amending the ordinance was going to address any future signage issues. So
Yeah, we have not had that discussion yet. I mean, there's been some other cases that come up to the forefront, top of the list, but that is something that needs to be addressed as well. You're talking about the directory signs, when there's only 2 signs allowed per business, but there's businesses out there. That again, it's not apples to apples, it's something that we need to talk about.
yeah, but they do exist already in some of these businesses, the multiple signs, kind of similar to what we see here.
The sign, again, was something we didn't foresee. So the commission.
Well, I don't think those were similar. I mean, those were the person that had the business could not put up their sign, and it was one of the row houses, one of the row. I think what you're talking about is we had like 3 businesses in one building, and one of the businesses, if we only had 2 signs, could not have their sign up, or something like that. And that, to me, that's different than this. And I know that we didn't do our due diligence on this. We, as elected officials, as past elected officials, as commission passed, maybe we didn't do what we were supposed to do. But I'm afraid if we just pass it just like this, and that's all I'm asking, I know that we're going to go back and look at signage, and I get all that, but we can't be always saying we're going to fix it later, right? We're going to fix it coming up. I'm not comfortable passing this the way it's written, that he can have 16 signs just because it was when it was Shorty's. I'm sorry that that's happened to him. I think that a compromise here would be that he could take some of these signs down just to be closer to our ordinance. And then when we get this stuff figured out, they'll probably stay down. I don't know. I mean, I think they'll stay down. I think it's important that I think this is one of the things we just got done talking about, is in the big picture is signage. Things can look obnoxious with signs very easily. And so all we're saying is, since we have an ordinance in place, we know there's things that have not been compliant. The only way to fix those is by fixing them one at a time when they come to us, but not saying, hey, let's pass this one and fix it later. I don't want to do that either. I don't want to do that either. And especially for this, because this is, to me, is a biggie, because we might have another business like this come up on, more south, closer to 4 Points, a store, and they might want to put all 18 signs up. Do we want to do that? Well, Lucky's did, because we weren't willing to when we had the opportunity, we weren't willing to roll it back. I'm sorry. That's so.
And I think too, and going back to the case Trustee Novatus mentioned, I believe I was sick for that meeting or out of town. I can't remember. But I know that some of those pictures the applicant presented, some of that was artwork done in the 70s that preceded any kind of sign ordinance. So I don't think that was a fair representation that the applicant presented. But unfortunately, I wasn't at that meeting. But, again, just going back, for whatever was done in the past doesn't mean we have to follow it. And tell you, you said it, we're going to have businesses that come and say, I want this sign, I want a neon sign, I want 14 more signs. So all I have to say. Thank you.
So trustees, just to get back, there is a motion on the floor for approval, but your actions for this can be specific. So what we can look
Conditions.
we can look at approval as it's been presented. There can be conditions that are set. It can be postponed. And within that postponement, it can be, there has to be specific designations on what needs to be completed with postponing for re-review before it's reheard. But those are some options for you.
And I think Trustee Cadena brings up an excellent point in that I wasn't aware that the discussion about, that you mentioned, Trustee Novatus, about talking about amending the signs and then the sign ordinance, but it didn't get done. And so I think that's great. We're just keep on kicking the can down the road, and it's going to get us in trouble.
I would like to propose an amendment to postpone decision on this until we go through, I guess, inventory the sign to see which ones
So postpone for what reason on that?
to inventory, because there's a lot of signage. And so which ones would be under would be allowable? Guess could be number or those that are,
There's only
It's
two
only
that are
two.
allowed.
Yeah.
That's per the ordinance. There's only two signs that are allowed as of right now.
Okay.
And that's the way that reads. So, I mean, that's pretty
pretty clear.
straightforward on that.
That's why it's not very descriptive, it's just two signs.
Yep.
For business. Oh, okay, so Mayor, you're saying that it really isn't an option for us to postpone based on we can make a
Well,
different,
I mean,
support
well,
postponing.
you wouldn't.
So if it's postponed, I mean, you can have it postponed and say maybe you want legal to review it. Maybe you want to get that opinion, and I can find out a legal opinion on this. If you want to have it reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, that's an option there. If that's something that needs to be there. It's if it is postponed, that's what or it's postponed until there's an ordinance change. It's up to you all specifically on the length of the postponement and when that would be potentially heard.
I'm not in favor of postponing. That's just my own thoughts. I think we need to make a vote and work on the sign ordinance. The applicant can select the two signs he wants at this time until we have something in writing that we can revisit. Those are my thoughts.
Do we have his motion on the floor already or no?
Hmm?
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Well, it doesn't have a second, so
It does.
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
So for postponing,
No, not for.
No,
that trustee Novatus made a,
Liz, do you,
No, I mean.
We had a motion to vote. We haven't
yeah,
made a
but
motion to
I
postpone.
offered an amendment, but there has been no second, so it's
Right.
a moot point if there's no second, so.
okay. So the motion on the floor is for approval of the application as it's been submitted. Is there any conditions that might be suggested?
I would like to, I mean, if there was a condition to have some opinion from legal, or something, I don't know. I mean,
And legal isn't present tonight, unfortunately, so.
but anyway, it's just, I'm not making a motion, just expressing a.
I would like to make a motion to allow the applicant to have two signs as it's written in the ordinance until we can further discuss the signage and come to a resolution there and see if we add more or not.
So you're saying to have further discussion without having the ordinance in place?
No, to allow him to have two
Mhm.
signs. To have two signs according to the ordinance until we can further review the signage ordinance.
Per the
Okay.
ordinance, right? Yeah, second.
So that would be a condition. Okay. Because otherwise we just be voting yes or no on 14 signs. I got it. Okay.
So there's a condition motion on the floor for the applicant to only have two signs per the ordinance until it's been the sign ordinance is amended and reviewed for more signs, correct?
Yes.
And that motion is made by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Novatus. Any further discussion on the condition? Seeing as there is none, Gloria, roll call vote on the condition, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Yes.
Trustee Cadena,
Yes.
Trustee Johnson Burek,
Yes.
Trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yeses.
Thank you. So that's for the condition. Is there any other discussion or conditions? Seeing as there is none, we'll get back to the call on the floor, which was for approval of the PZHAC case 061922, with a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Nevares, that does include a condition for 2 signs on the property until the ordinance is amended to possibly reflect more in the future. Gloria, if we can roll call vote on the amended.
Trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Trustee Johnson Burek,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Yes.
Trustee Cadena,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yeses.
Thank you very much for approval of PZHAC case 061922 with conditions. Next item on the agenda is PZHAC case 061928 at 1891 Avenida de Mesilla, submitted by Tom Hutchinson.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by
Stephanie.
Trustee Johnson Burek. I'll open it up for discussion. Benny.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, trustees, I didn't get received a phone call, this guy was asking questions regarding this case, before the meeting. And one of her concerns was, the board action form did not state if the lighting of the flag, was, upright, or is it from the top of the flagpole down? The flagpole being proposed is 25 feet. There's a structural limitations to a commercial zone of 30 feet. Because she was unaware of where the light was going to be mounted, one of her concerns was, well, 30 feet exceeds, it's excessive to have a light all the way on top of the flagpole, right? But because the flag is being proposed, it is going to have upright lighting. According to our code, section of the code, there is a maximum of 800 lumens. Two little light poles, so that will preserve or help assist with our night skies here in Mesilla. It was a little confusing about the maximum allowable structure in the commercial zone. The flagpole itself states 15 feet if it's the light itself for a flagpole. And when I went back to read it again, it doesn't talk about the flagpole itself needs to be 15 feet. It's just in case you want to put light on it, it's 15 feet. Under definitions, under that title 18, general provisions on the definition, the structure is actually, let me read that to you word by word. Is actually considered anything that is attached to the ground in a real short summary of what it means, what it says. So I have it written down here. So this section again is Title 18 and is outdoor lighting. And again, there is a good reason why, there is concerns, because obviously our night skies are very important. And section is 1850. Okay, under 1850-050, section I, rated use is height. Section I says flag illuminations is limited to 800 initial lumens, example 40 watt incandescent bulbs. And then it says, section A H, which is just right above it, it says uplighting for architectural illuminations is permitted, provided that the total output is less than 5,400 initial lumens per 3,000 square feet of wall surface area and less than 1,800 initial lumens per fixture. This is more for structural buildings. Above that is uplighting on landscaping and foliage shall be limited to 800 initial lumens. Again, this is talking about any lights that are facing up to light up either the flagpole or anything like that. The structure under a separate section, under our commercial zones section, it states that the maximum allowable height is 30 feet. And I'm gonna read that word by word because it's important how we interpret that. You all can make that determination. I mean, they'll be in section 1810. Much faster than you know. Okay, section 1810 under structure, this goes with the definition. And under the definition, it says, means anything constructed, a building of any kind or any piece of work artificially built or composed of parts joined together in some definite manner, which requires location on the ground or is attached to something having a location on the ground. So that is the definition for a structure. And the structure for commercial zone height wise is the maximum height is 30 feet. So that is why it was approved by the commission to have a flagpole, 25-foot flagpole that's being proposed with an uplight illuminating it with 800 lumens maximum. And I stand back from the questions. When we had a discussion over the phone, you know, it's hard sometimes to make a determination. We tell you, after we hung up, I was under the impression that I read that the flagpole itself only need to be up to 15 feet. And as I just read, it's not the case.
Thank you, Eddie. And I just pulled up a chart online that shows that 800 lumens is the equivalent of a 60-watt incandescent light bulb or a 12-watt LED light bulb.
Okay.
And that can be
Just
one
in
of the
purpose.
conditions that, on board, you know, obviously there is the concern of what lumens is going to be installed. You know, this is not the first. I have another case similar to this we're working on. But you know, it could be a condition that a work order needs to be submitted after the company, you know, installs the lighting on the flag that shows that, you know, the 800 lumens. Unless it's written on the bulb itself, I'm not exactly sure how it will work. I don't have a light meter of some sort to tell me how much lumens the light is producing. Maybe there is a tool of such, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, this says, yeah, uplighting uplighting on landscaping. So that's not specific in here. So potentially if we don't put that condition in, that it's uplighting from the ground and it's limited to the 800 lumen, even though this says, the code book says it's 40 watt. You looked it up and it says 60.
Mhm.
See, it says, for example, a 40-watt incandescent lamp.
Well, this was written, you know, I imagine, you know, with the technology now, I don't know what the light bulb's capacity is, but the important part is, you know, it's gotta be 800 lumens coming out of that bulb. Right? I don't know if
Okay.
the electric company can show us there is a tool.
Okay,
I recently bought some light bulbs and they said, don't concentrate on the watt, concentrate on the lumens. That's what the standard is now. So,
okay. So, I mean, I would like to add the condition that, because it's not in there, and it's real important that if they were to put it on top it can't be above 15 feet then, even though the flagpole is 25 feet. So if they wanted to put that up higher, they can. And if it's from the ground, then it can't be more than 800 lumens, which is supposedly better for the night sky. I mean, that's why it was written that way. Okay, but so we need to add that as a condition.
What is, if you can state the condition as you would like it read?
Well, that the lighting must be on the ground, upright, and meet the standard and cannot be more than 800 lumens.
Second.
So the motion on the floor by Trustee Cadena's condition was for the lighting to be on the ground and to not exceed the 800 lumens as permitted by the code, correct?
Correct. That's what the code.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick. Is there any other discussion on that? Seeing as there is none, Gloria, roll call vote on the condition, please.
Yes.
Trustee Cadena,
Yes.
trustee Johnson Burr,
Yes.
trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yes.
Great. Thank you very much for that condition approval. Next, or sorry, is there any other discussion or conditions on this? Seeing as there is none, we'll go back to the original vote or the motion on the floor for approval by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Johnson Burek. That does include the condition for the lighting to be on the ground with no more than 800 lumens per the code. If there is no further discussion, Gloria, roll call, please.
Trustee Nevares,
Yes.
trustee Johnson Burr,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Yes.
trustee Cadena,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yes.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of PZHAC case 061928 with the conditions. Next item on the agenda is approval for Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Ms. Martha Mulvihill.
So moved.
Second. Sorry.
Motion by Trustee Johnson Burek, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick. We'll open it up for discussion, if any.
Is everybody here that's on this list or no?
I see no.
No.
Not a lot applicants are present.
Okay. She was a alternate.
Alternate previously, yes. And I'll touch on that in the slate when we get down to the slate as well.
Okay.
If there's no further discussion, if there is any, none, Gloria, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Johnson Burr,
Yes.
trustee Cadena,
Yes.
trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yes.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Ms. Martha Mulvihill, who is present. Thank you. Next up is approval of Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Mr. Eric Walkinshaw.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Cadena. I will open it up for discussion, if any. Mr. Walkinshaw was a previous commissioner as well, or is a previous commissioner. If there is none, Gloria, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Cadena,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
trustee Johnson Burr,
Yes.
trustee Nevares,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yes.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Mr. Eric Walkinshaw. Congratulations, and he is present. Next up, for Planning and Zoning Commission, we do have for approval Miss Christina Alba.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Johnson Burek. I will open it up for discussion. Miss Alba is a previous commissioner as well. There is no discussion. Gloria, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick,
Yes.
trustee Nevares,
Yes.
trustee Johnson Burr,
Yes.
trustee Cadena,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yes.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Miss Christina Alba, who is not present. Next up on the for approval is Planning and Zoning Commissioner, Mr. Brian Reeves.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by trustee Johnson Burek. And I will open it up for discussion. Mr. Reeves is a new applicant, putting in his application. There is no discussion. Gloria, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Nevada,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Merritt,
Yes.
Trustee Johnson Burek,
Yes.
Trustee Cadena,
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yeses.
Great, thank you very much. Next up is appointment of Mayor Pro Tem for the not fiscal year, for the
2025.
2025
calendar year.
calendar year. There we go. Thank you, trustee.
Mayor, I make a motion to nominate trustee Jerry Nevadas.
Okay. Motion on the floor for trustee Nevadas.
Okay, well,
Do you accept the not motion?
I'll accept it. If-
Oh, sorry.
No, it's kind of surprised me. I didn't expect.
Okay. So there is a motion on there for trustee Nevadas. Is there any other? Well, it's not a motion. It would be a nomination, right? Because once we have the election per se, there would be, unless there are other nominations.
well, I'd like to nominate Adriana for the position again for another year. I think she's done a good job as the mayor pro tem, and she stepped in quite a bit. But I like Jerry too. Everybody on this board would be a very good mayor pro tem.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so question is, the fun part, right? Who have we done this in the past with secret ballot?
I think everyone
Open.
deserves an opportunity. That's
Just-
why.
What's that?
I
Just go down and state your.
No, I was just gonna, we can do it that way. I was just going back and reflecting that in the past, we've always given members of the board an opportunity.
To speak.
No, to be mayor pro tem.
Okay.
And it's unfortunate that that's not happening, but that's just my thoughts.
Okay. So with that in mind, is there? We'll just go down, and if you will go down the line, and if you'll state your recommendation, and then after we have formal recommendation, we'll have a formal vote on whoever has that, and we already know who's probably going to have the deciding vote, right? Gloria, if you would go down the row, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Merritt,
We have to give an explanation?
No, just give who you vote for,
Oh.
or not who you recommend as a
And
whole.
why?
Sure. No. Well, I
Okay.
guess you can't. I guess
Well,
you
I
can.
don't know.
I guess you
This
can.
never
Sure, go for it.
Split before. Well, I would like to vote for myself, although I feel everyone should take that position. I think before this position has always just been a name head, and I think I've stepped in whenever my fellow trustees couldn't make an interview. I've stepped into every interview possible. I've almost completed my Molly training. I'm only a couple credits away, and I'm continuing to further my education so that this role can continue exceeding more than just the title, and taking that opportunity to really be a support for not just the mayor, but the town and its employees. So I would say me.
Okay, and I've renominating Adriana because I do feel like this is we've only been in office one term. We got on together. I think that it is a steep learning curve, and I think another year of experience as mayor pro tem would benefit both her, the mayor, that brings the vastness, and I'm sure Jerry would. Stephanie has done for many years in the past. So sticking to my nominee.
Thank you.
Trustee Navarez.
All right.
Okay, and trustee Navarez?
With all modesty, I would recommend myself.
And the way it goes, you know this, right? Gosh, that's a tough one. Because you both, I think that's the thing, is it just like as it's been brought up, is, you both are very committed to the town and do come in when necessary, have the questions, work with staff, and have been supportive of me so far, which I truly, truly appreciate. So, and of all the team, and as well as the rest of the commission, or sorry, the trustees. The interesting thing that I'm weighing in and taking into consideration is also length in office, and thinking about, because we do have another election that's coming up in this upcoming year. So that's what I'm kind of taking into consideration. So with that in mind, because this is going to, I'm not saying it's your last year, but it's your last elected year with until the election. I will say Trustee Merrick will be my formal recommendation on that, as I will hope that Trustee Nevadas will be in the next actual year, or whoever may be at that point in time. But that'll be my recommendation on that. So, all right. And with that, there is an approval with that. So approval of appointment of Mayor Pro Tem being Trustee Merrick. We can have that motion on the floor.
So moved.
Second?
Motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick, seconded by Trustee Cadena. I will open it up for any further discussion if necessary. And then Gloria, if we can roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Cadena?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson Burek?
No.
Trustee Nevares?
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 3 yeses and 1 no.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem Merrick back into the appointed office there. Next up for approval is the slate of commission and board commitments for appointed offices. And one thing I do want to say ahead of time is that I did not have the opportunity to get this completed to hand out to you today. But the intent is to have you all on the same committees that you've been working on over the past year. And then the only changes would be in here is that it would be the changes in the Planning and Zoning Commission, which would be the recommendations of Mr. Eric Gallegos, Ms. Lori Miller, who are present commissioners that are continuing on through the next year, continuing to serve as appointed board members, and then to having the previous commissioners that have the experience remain as the voting board members. So that would be Miss Martha Mulvihill, Mr. Eric Walkinshaw, and Miss Christina Alba being the primary members, and then having Mr. Reeves, who would be a new commissioner, serving as the alternate for the upcoming year. Now that would be the change in the slate, which I can have a formal copy at the next meeting for sure. If I can have an approval of that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Trustee Johnson Burek, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Merrick. I will open it up for discussion.
Can you email all that though to us,
I
please?
sure will. Yes.
Instead of waiting till the next meeting,
Yes,
please.
I sure will.
Thank you so much. That would help.
And I'll have the contact emails now that I have those for all of the
Perfect.
those boards you sit on as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I can have a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Nevares?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson Burek?
Yes.
Trustee Cadena?
Yes.
Mayor, the roll call is 4 yeses.
Great. Thank you very much for approval of the slate of the commission and also the board commitments. This is going to be extremely helpful, especially with the upcoming meetings that we have for the Planning and Zoning Commission. We do have one position, alternate position that is still open that we are accepting applications for in the interim. So as those applications potentially come in, which Eddie will be redoing a posting to put out there again, hopefully we'll have that board fully filled with the alternates as well. Next item on the agenda is discussion of modification for the short-term rental ordinance. There are no decisions to be made on this evening. It is just discussion. There were the changes that were made just to kind of kick this off. And Eddie, if you would mind coming up as well, just to kick this off on this, that this is kind of what came. Some of this is what came from the suggestions from the last meeting, and in there, in specific, where we're looking at the initial verbiage under purpose, that really the changes in the historic zones from the foot setback to the percentage in each zone, and then the total number of permits would be evaluated each year. In that, as it was noted by some of our residents, more than anything, we know that there's some big changes that need to happen with verbiage because of conflicting. But what I wanted to do was get the board's kind of feelings on this in just general discussion before I actually have the staff go into full detail of changing all of the ordinance and updating all of that as it's been proposed here. So that's ultimately some of these changes, like you see, that have been emailed in with recommendations of some of the changes because of conflicts. Those would be updated fully when we after this meeting, if the board kind of feels that this is a good direction for this ordinance. And then the goal would be that any other action items that come out of this discussion will be given to staff to follow through to make those changes, to really drill down on that, have the final review and looking in, to make sure that goes there. And that way at the next board meeting, it will be up for the potential of full adoption, which then again, at that point in time, I do want to clarify that once that ordinance does come up for full adoption, that there can still be potential changes that are made at that point in time as conditions before it has been approved, just like we have in past ordinance adoption as well. So with that, any questions or anything, comments on any of this, or discussion fully all around?
Mayor, going in and Eddie as well, on the board action form under department comments, you had stated, and first off, let me back up. Thank you so much for all your extra work that you did on this and researching what you were tasked with. You mentioned one thing that was not discussed during our work session is requiring an SUP for STRs in the RF and RA zones. Do we all agree as it is written, or do we regulate STRs in these two zones like any other zones by percentage of dwellings? I thought, and refresh my memory, fellow board members, I thought we talked about the percentage in those two zones. I thought that's what you had requested
For
the RF and RA zones.
which those zones do have the percentage.
Right, but Eddie's asking us a question in the board action form under department comments.
Yeah. I think the original was that every STR in an RA or RF zone would require a special use permit.
Okay,
So I think the question is if we do the 10%,
okay.
then do we still want a special use permit for an STR in those
Okay.
two zones? Because it is kind of out of the ordinance, because it doesn't, I mean, we don't have an ordinance, right? So do we
Right.
say that the ordinance that we're building right now will cover those two zones without a special use permit? Is that what you're saying? But that the limitations are at 10%, because the original document said there would be no limitations in the RARF zone, which,
Right.
It will be a
Which
case by case based on a special use permit.
right,
So
a
I-
case by case, which, I think I stated at that time, I wasn't totally comfortable with that, using,
right.
just kind of freewheeling it, but
I just wanted to verify, double check. that
no,
it's
and
something-
that's a good question. We just want to understand the
Right,
question.
Right. So,
We're-
so you're saying, yeah, do we want to propose a 10% with a special use permit?
No, it's 10% without a special use.
But then that'll,
Like any other zone. Or it could be, I mean, I'm just.
It
I'm
could
just
be
throwing
both. It could be both. He just,
out- That's what I meant, but you got, more obviously can change.
Yeah.
You
he,
wanna proceed.
I just had a question just to throw it out there because when we're talking about a number of feet between, the STRs, which could be kind of cumbersome to try to determine that. And the other one, the percentages, there's calculations and, all this. But just a thought is an idea would be just to, how many do we have now that we know of in the whole town of Mesilla, STRs? Is it 30 something?
Information. Last time we had that workshop, I believe we had, we're at,
Is it 35, I believe?
35?
38, something like that.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking at another approach here. Could we just have a set number across all zones without having to use a calculator to figure out percentages or a tape measure to figure out distances?
Number of dwellings changes.
Yeah, that was, I believe the first ordinance that was originally proposed for STRs to the board of trustees was just that. It just remember that we picked, I believe it was 100 across the board, and just no designation per zones. But again, it's up to.
Well, I think that would be a workable alternative, maybe, to trying to figure out.
Definitely
Percentages.
Whenever we had the ad hoc committee,
I don't like it.
you
They'll
know,
all end up in the historical residential.
the concerns
Yeah.
from some of the members was, the density part of
yeah.
being so close to each other. But now that we're not going that route, now we're just going off a percentage, not off of density, then, having a total amount for the town wouldn't be too much more different.
I mean, it's almost the same thing. I mean, but
But
But-
again, I'm just referring to a lot of members from the board. The original thing was, it's just the density amount of homes.
That was, yeah, originally it was the number, but the committee, and I also wanted to thank the committee because they too worked very tirelessly on this ordinance as well. But I know it was a number, then it came back within feet, and then we sent it back with a percentage. And the concern was the density that we'd have just STRs all in one place. So if I recall correctly, I don't know.
That is correct.
Well, I think that just as part of this discussion, that the most important part that we look at in this all of the allowable is that number 2 is that the total number of permits will be evaluated each year and adjusted, and the verbiage on that can be changed if we need to see that verbiage changed to where it's presented to the board, and that way, which is the intent in the plan. But to follow through with that way the board can make the necessary recommendations if there's any action that needs to come from that. Correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. We're not seeing a lot of applications anymore with STRs wanting, to come STRs. And, history and facts show the last 10 years, the growth in STR has pretty much plateaued. So being a living ordinance, living document, for a year, I think will give us a lot of insight on where to go from here, what's being proposed after a year, and we see, what effects it's having on our community.
Well, and I still think that just monitoring it. I mean, you still have a list, and I know it was since August, and that may have changed, and you might not have had enough time to update that, but it looks like a lot of people are out of compliance already. I mean, people are not registered, right?
That is
They're
correct. I
not-
believe the ones that are not registered are actually
They're
paying
not,
real close attention to what's gonna happen with this ordinance. And
yeah,
there's gonna be a grace period and everything, and it's just a matter of,
okay, so
getting
you,
our ducks in a row to hold them accountable.
okay, so, yeah, so you're feeling like they're not going ahead and getting permitted and stuff because they're waiting. Like if it were
It's an
me, I'd
assumption-
be,
It's an assumption, but it could be. There are
if it
some
were
that
me,
have
I'd be coming in getting my permit, so I wouldn't be on a list that I don't have my permit.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong there. Anyway, okay, because there's people that just aren't coming in to get permits, and we know they're out there because they're on the site.
Yeah, and it's a matter of notification. I haven't notified all the non-compliant, unregistered ones yet. Again, I'm waiting for this ordinance to.
Oh, you have not?
Not correct, not all of them.
Okay, so they're on the list and they don't know it.
Yeah, it's very possible.
The list.
Yeah, okay, I just wondered because they've been, it's been months that this has been going on, and they're still on the non-compliant list.
And monitoring is neat, because being able to monitor short-term rentals online, software we don't have. It's just a matter of controlling and keeping an eye on things,
And it really is. And I think, the amount of money to get the software sounds outrageous. Like we could get another codes officer for that amount of money. But anyway, okay. So yeah, I think we're definitely getting closer to what we should start out with. And I think maybe there is an opportunity to change the verbiage that we just to not make it your total responsibility and we don't leave it open-ended, that we do that it is reviewed or brought to the board for review with a status of how it's going or whatever, so that we're not 5 or 10 years down the line without any changes and things have gotten out of hand, because you're going to have to do a lot of figure out when we get to 10% at any given time.
I think it's important, though. I think it's important that we adopt this ordinance and put it into play, and to see either by percentage of ordinance or overall for
Numbers.
the town, and put it into play. And like the mayor mentioned, within a year, look at it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes as far as upcoming new short-term rentals that's going to be lining up, that's going to take advantage of that opportunity. And then after take a look at it again and see where we want to go from there. Maybe there's it's hard because all other municipalities within New Mexico, very little bit regulations on short-term rentals. Very little, it's still too little. Some don't require licenses. They just gotta be registered, which I think is kind of one of the things that happen here. But yeah, there is a lot of news. It's kind of hard to get it right. Maybe a comprehensive plan is important. Right? That's one of the things we need to mention. And I talked to everybody right now. It's so important right now to come to these meetings and voice your opinion on this issue. So it might be something that might be.
That's a good point.
Stand by.
Other parts of discussion, just as it's been brought up by other members and community in the past, just to kind of see if you all have any discussion on it, is the on page 7 under Appendix A, with all of the fees. We have two fees that you see have been struck from there. One being the fire inspection fee, and that being completed every year, 3 years. And having the fire chief give kind of an update on that and look into all of that, is that it wouldn't be wise, and he can speak on it if need be, but just in short, it wouldn't be wise for us to have that's inspection completed within the residential area due to the fire code, state fire code, in the way it's presented, because then it would create an undue burden upon these businesses, and we wouldn't actually be able to approve in the end any of these short-term rentals, given the nature of the business within the residential zone. In short, good. Cool. All right. So that's why that's really been fully struck from this in general. And then the request was to have the permit updates struck as well. And then, but I do want to bring to attention the other fees that we do have here. I had to see if we're okay with the fees, because there has been discussion on these in the past. The business license does not change, because that would be what is statutorily done. The other three, though, would be something that would be put in place by the municipality. So I just want to open discussion on any of that, if there is any.
I'm fine with the fees.
I'm okay with the fees.
Okay. All right. With that, is there any other changes or discussion across the board with this ordinance as it's been worked on? No? Like I mentioned earlier, we'll make the changes as it's been recommended here, and then clean it up. Our intent is to fully have this ready for approval and adoption by the next meeting. There will still be the opportunity to make changes once we have that completed by the next meeting as well. With that, if there is no further discussion, then we'll move on to the next point of business, which is public input. This is where we'll allow the public to address the board for any other discussion items. If you would state your name for the record, please.
Mary Helen Ritchie, 2231, Santiago. I wrote a couple of notes during the discussion that you had, which was wonderful. Nothing came up about the Taylor Historic Site, and that's a huge part of what's happening with the history of our town, and also our ancestors and family people, their stories, and how that's going to be incorporated. So I'm really hoping that that will be a big discussion tomorrow evening. I do know that the new manager, Emily, will be at the meeting, as well as our educational person and maybe one of our interpretive rangers. So please keep that in mind. I was a little disappointed that it didn't come up today. Also, just real quick, and this is maybe for Lorenzo, the grill drains on Calle de Guadalupe, close to La Posta, there's a terrible smell when you go by those drains, and maybe you can explain that in a little bit, and or what's going on with that. But I'm notorious for walking my dog around town, and when we pass those, and it's been mentioned to me by other people, that there's really strong, there's two of those drains that are close there that have smell. And then the other thing is the storm drains on Highway 28 that you just kind of go, the road looks great, and then you go down and back up again. And I know, Russell, that you had, Mayor, you had spoken about those were going to be lifted up or whatever. That wouldn't be good. So maybe that can be explained. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Raichi. Any other public comment?
Good evening and happy New Year, trustees. Catherine Walkinshaw. And I just wanted to talk about three things real quick. You got my email about just editorial changes and
consistency for the STR ordinance, so thank you very much for doing that. I'm still gonna, mention that I think we still have a serious address issue in this town, and I don't think you're gonna get money from Airbnb for, lodger's tax until that's resolved. So I think you're gonna end up having to ask the owners to pay it themselves. So I don't think the platform's gonna do it, because Google Maps isn't gonna change, and I can't get an Amazon package delivered to me for that reason. So, second thing is, I wanna ask just a procedural thing. Prior to the adoption of that STR ordinance, will there be a public hearing for the public to talk? I didn't hear that discussed, and whether or not the public will be able to make official public hearing comments for it. And then I just want to give a shout out and a plug to Greg and everybody. I went ahead and registered my property and my husband and I on the SIA Community Connect. I recommend all the residents do it. It's a great thing to do. It's not hard to do. And the most important thing is it gives the fire department and the ambulance people really essential information to know when they come and try to do a rescue. So it really makes their job easier. And as we're seeing in LA, where my daughter lives right now, it's essential to have something like this. So thank you for doing it.
And thank you, Ms. Walkinshaw.
Hi, my name is Martha Mulderhill, 2690 Bolt Street. I was just wondering if anybody has any information on the light on Bolt, Galton 28. If it's gonna be changed, because you can sit there for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mulvihill.
Susan Kruger, and I just wanted to comment on a choice of words on the agenda, and it has to do with the discussion item. It's modification of a short-term rental ordinance. There is no short-term rental ordinance, and so there's nothing to modify at this point. And that whole process, of course, will go out to the public because it's a proposed, when it becomes a proposed ordinance. And then I feel that that it's important that the public in the whole community has an opportunity to study it and comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kruger.
My name is Dasha Bolsheva, Estrada Road, and I got extremely excited during the work session at the mention of bringing the town sewage lines to more properties. I live in a cluster of houses, and that would be an absolute game changer. So.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Basra.
My name is Trina Witter, and I wanted to get an update on where the cell tower process is. I know the last thing we heard was that there was going to be a review of the water tower design, so I didn't know where that was. Has something been submitted? Has something been reviewed? And just you could just address that.
Thank you, Ms. Witter.
Hello, everyone. Very just settled. Hi, Cynthia. Want to see you. I just have a couple of things. No offense to Miss Merrick, but I think that Jerry should have gotten a chance to be protected. No offense, you've done a wonderful job. Second, the signage around town. I've noticed that there's been more signs put up on several of the shops. It looks really tacky, no offense. And a little overbearing. I think that the two signs are great. Kind of stick to the ordinance, don't change it. And the last thing, the short-term rentals. I don't have anything against them. it's the number of them coming into the town of Mesquite. Eddie did mention that they were kind of at a standstill. And I think what we have is fine. I think that they should also pay their fair share. Like they say, it's not a business and it's not considered a business, but it really is a business. And it's infringing on our residents. So I just feel it's fair to let them pay their fair share because the other businesses have to pay certain things too. So just be fair all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lucero. Any other public comment? Seeing as there is none, we'll move on to Board of Trustee Committee reports. We'll start with Trustee Nevares,
I don't have anything.
Trustee Johnson Bjork,
No committee reports. We will not have a MPO meeting for the month of January. Our next meeting will be February 12th in the Board of County Commissioner chambers.
thank you. Trustee Cadena,
No committee reports.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just to restate what Trustee Johnson said, we have it in February. They changed our bi-month or our month off because of legislation purposes. So we don't have one in January. Other than that, I don't have any other reports.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I don't know why, for some reason, I thought we did have MPO tomorrow. So I was ready to roll. so that's a good.
We said something, yeah.
That's a good thing because it just means I'll be able to spend more time with Danny. So it's a good part on that. But thank you for that. We did have a Taylor Advisory Board meeting for the Taylor Monument, and that's not with the Friends group. That's the meeting with the state, and it was a good meeting overall. That project is coming along. They're working on ADA compliance things in there right now. Working on the collections and getting those set and getting everything moved around to where it needs to be, room by room. They're still projecting for it to be fully open by the end of this year to the public. So, and that's looks like it's the correct timeline. So just in short of what that looks like. I do want to also say, and I'll just throw it in here because it's kind of committee reports, and I'll do better on this, and we can do it during trustee and staff comments as well. But I'll probably hit on it on committee reports. But we do have several other committees that are working on some things throughout the town. And just in hearing our conversations that we've had with during the work session, it shows that I need to work better on sharing kind of what we're working on. I think that would be great. So I'll be bringing that rather than when it comes up for approval, you are aware on how we're working on some of these projects rather than just having that going, because there is some behind the scenes work that's happening. So to give a little kind of example on that, we do have a committee that's put together for arts and murals, as it was brought up, and arts, murals, and signage and cultural events and everything to that extent. So we're working on a draft of a arts and public arts ordinance to hopefully be brought forward sometime in the future, in the near future. This committee is also working on signage potential. So some of the signage that we're looking at that you'll probably see coming before you are our gateway and entry signs, like it was brought up during our meeting. So we did receive funding through capital outlay this last year that allowed for signage projects within the town, plus some other signage that we have for funding that was received through the Destination Forward grant for the work that's being done at the Parque de Cura, Father Ramon Ortiz on that park. So in essence, what you'll be seeing just in kind of a prelude preview As it was brought up earlier, big, large letters, monumental letters, 4 foot tall is what we're thinking. And in a rusted metal would be the potential of what that looks like rather than bright colors like you see in other communities. We're looking at the potential of that going at commemorative park. That way it gives a little more aspect of that. Once we have those renderings, we'll probably take that through the process. We are looking at new signage at the entrance at here at Veterans Park and having a larger sign to bring that to that. We do have the opportunity to potentially also look at a possible sign of some sort going in the DOT median that is right when you enter into Mesilla. Right across, it's in between the Harley Davidson or the old Harley Davidson and Luna Rosa. There's a large median there that has a potential for signage. We're evaluating the signage that is at all of the entrances to the town, being on Moto Boulevard or 292, where we have the drop down sign. Same here at the entrance on Avenida Mesilla, on the entrance at University Avenue, and then at the entrance at the other end of Avenida Mesilla. So all these signs are presently being reviewed by this committee as well for hopeful adoption and use of the funds that have been brought forward. And then we also have park signage, which you approved some of that this evening, and the replacement of some of that signage in the park, and addition of some of the signage, new signage in park to help with sharing, as well as the plaza to help with sharing the pathways, events, things that are going on, and things for people to do within the town, which will be created. And then we also have a sign being constructed, or not constructed, planned out for the Parque de Cura in particular, that will have the name on there, hopefully a mural, and then a lot of on one side, and then hopefully a little bit of the town history on the backside, and the history to include history of the church, history of the Acequias, history of Father Ramon Ortiz, history of any other founders, history of pre-colonial Mesilla, and of course any other designations that might be thought of by the board. So this is things that are kind of behind the scenes as far as it pertains to signage, as well as in addition to arts mural. This committee's been active and busy and working on some of these things. That's an ad hoc that I put together last year that we're working on. The thought was to also, because it was brought up, to work on the signage ordinance, and that this committee is also going to be making the recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Commission along with staff for that on that part there. So just in sharing some of that work that we're doing kind of behind the scenes as well. And I'll get better at sharing a lot of those along with the projects that we're working on. So I do apologize, but I'll add that in with a committee report, even though it's not really a Board of Trustee committee. It is a report to share there. Next up on the agenda is Board of Trustee and staff comments, and we will start with the Marshal's Department.
Good evening, trustees, Mr. Mayor. Happy New Year. Hope you had a good Christmas. I don't have much. The construction for our booking evidence rooms coming along, taking shape. Did I steal your thunder? The first week they really got moving. Now it's kind of slow, but it's starting to take shape. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but Deputy Brandon Baca has left the department in the town. He'll continue his career and growth at the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. He wanted to be closer to home. We're going to miss him. He was a heck of a deputy in that. Have some applications floating in. If you know anyone that is certified and wants to come work, send them my way. our 2 units are at Allen Wallace Supply getting outfitted. I'm in the process, or I'll start the process of ordering another unit. I want to try to phase out the 2 state police units that are over 180,000 miles and unsafe money pits. Hopefully get another Durango and get rid of the Chargers as well. No major issues over the holidays. Christmas Eve went great. Plaza was super packed, but no major issues on our end. Nothing else to report. I'll stand for questions or concerns.
Mayor, yeah, I was going to mention this in my comments, but since you brought up the opportunity, yeah, the decorations and everything, Christmas Eve, all of the events for the holidays are great. I was just going to ask that maybe we can look at reevaluating the streets that we leave open for next year. I don't know if anybody else saw or heard. I mean, I witnessed, and by the Billy the Kid, when they had the snowmaking machine, the people and the cars, and I was surprised no one got hit. I really was. So that's what I would. Yeah. So that was all I was going to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Fire Chief.
Good evening. I'm going to let Captain Morris talk for a second, and I've got a few things to say. He's got to learn to talk in front of you guys.
Don't be nervous.
My name is Cole Morris. Captain, you need to talk down. I'm the captain for the fire department. Obviously, I'm new to my position. I think this is the first time I'm addressing the board in a while. I haven't been to a meeting in a while. We've been super busy. This month already, we're already at 40 calls. We're adding about 3 a day. If we keep that same track for the rest of the month, it'll be our busiest month ever. A couple things that we're working on right now. All 3 of our ambulances, which we call them rescues, they all just passed their DOT inspection, so they'll all be good to run for the state. And now we just got to outfit them and keep on doing our job, I guess. I just put in for a trauma systems development grant to get new equipment for one of the rescues. It's proven injury prevention equipment. It's an auto loader, a battery powered gurney, and then a stair chair. We put in for these grants last year through the state for Rescue 18, and now we're putting them in for Rescue 19, which is the name of our other truck. We just finished our DOT inspection on the ambulance we got donated from Albuquerque Fire Rescue, so we're going to be putting that one in service soon. We're just waiting on equipment and trying to get people in the station to run it. But we're in the middle. I'm sorry, I'm a little dirty right now. We're in the middle of a bunch of projects at the station. They're redoing the base floor, and they just finished the first day, and now they're going to do the next 2 this week. So hopefully everything will be done by next Monday. And there's something else I was going to talk about too. Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, we had a rescue on the plaza. One of the marshals was able to stop a choking over at the Double Eagle, and that's something we're going to kind of try to congratulate her on. Maybe try to find, I know you know more about that stuff than I do, but try to find if there's some sort of award that we can give her, because that's pretty impressive. Yeah. But that's everything I wanted to talk about.
Thank you.
So to elaborate on that one, that was Deputy Sandra Lopez, and she ran in. She was the first one in because we were trying to sort our way around the traffic issue, and if that road had been closed, it would have taken me longer to get there with the ambulance, and it did. So I was glad it was open. I was able to get around back, but she ran in and the woman was choking on a piece of food, and she did the Heimlich maneuver, and that lady got to see Christmas Day. So I'm going to put her in for a life-saving award with the Sons of the American Revolution. That's one place I can put people in for an award. If there's anything else, I mean, I think that that's worthy of that. As far as the work that's being done at the station, please, if anybody calls and complains about the mess outside the station, just laugh. All of our stuff is outside. It's going to be worse this next week because we're going to have I can only have 1 vehicle inside for this next week. So all our vehicles are going to be outside with heaters in them and water drained out of them so they don't freeze and break pipes and do bad things. And all of our equipment's outside, and the marshals get to walk around and make sure it's not getting stolen. It's awesome. But once it's done, it'll be a lot better.
I don't know, did you get the monthly report today? Did you all, so you saw how busy our call volume was last year? Explain how it should be an 11% increase, and I expect that eventually to taper off and become that once we kind of figure out what departments are where they're manning stations in the county. But as of right now, our efforts are really helping a lot of people. I think we've saved a lot of people this last couple of years that might not have been saved. So thank you all for your support. It's just a lot of work, and thank the volunteers when you get a chance to see them.
Sure.
Any questions?
Great, thank you. Public Works.
Happy New Year, trustees, mayor. Couple of updates on some projects that we got going on. The Picacho project is about 65% done, I'm gonna say. They're at the north end right now, putting in the drain, which will be probably done by the end of this week. And so that way they can go ahead and start just tying in 3 pieces of the utilities that are left. So that way they can start grading it and paving it. And get that,
Right.
yeah, get that road going back up to par within the next month or so. On the Marshall Benz stall of the building, there is all they're just waiting for is the state electrical to pass, get the inspection, get it passed, and they'll get back in there and rocking and rolling. And it's coming out pretty good. I've been there, gave it a little tour, and it's coming out nice. And Calle de Santiago was started and finished within a couple of weeks. Did all the upgrades to that. That's you guys did the approval to finish that out. And to reiterate on Mrs. Ritchie's deal, I know that we have gotten some complaints to the drains themselves. I know that we have to go in there and do a little bit of it's the buildup of all the stuff that goes down there. Sometimes there's not enough water to push it through where it needs to go. But the grates themselves have kind of like glued themselves together. So yeah, we have to try to figure out a way to get that so that way we can get it cleaned out. And then I'm not really too sure on the storm on Avenida, what you were talking about, or if Russell can reiterate on that one. And as far as the light situation, the NMDOT, I know they brought in and they had their guys, fix up the wires and all of that. But that's actually controlled by the city. And the city was out there also too. I don't know if they did enough studying or if they sat enough time there to watch, how long each stoplight, occurs. So I have the contact information to the city, and I might get them back out here because I know that we're still getting the calls on the time limits of the lights, so that way we can get that addressed. And as far as that, I'll stand by for any questions.
I think it's important also to talk about the university project and where we're at on that.
We'll touch on the university project. You will see that start going more heavily now. They already started over here at the corner of the avenue going down. They're starting to move the electrical poles. So the big electrical poles are already erected. It's just ready for them to move wiring. No utilities will be affected. They know how to do their job without doing that. They already finished the bridge where they needed to where they were going to upgrade that to bring it up to par, so that way they can get that covered And so that way they can reopen that also too, just for temporary until they, still keep going with their project.
Okay.
And
Two more. Santiago Bridge and Norte Bridge.
We got the go ahead. Well, not the go ahead yet, but that's going through CES, so that we got the bids and everything, and got that ready to go within the next couple of months, hopefully before the irrigation starts. So that one will move pretty fast also too. The same with the Calle del Norte, right before all the season of irrigation starts. And it is the grant season, so we did submit for a couple more grants to go in for the, what we had on the list of our ICP projects. So that's gonna get moving also too.
Which I'll touch on that here in a minute as well. We got a lot going on, so it's good stuff though. Any questions, trustees?
I guess the finish date for that Kai Pikachu was February, so it's on schedule to be finished.
It's pretty much on schedule. Last week we got some bad weather. We're headed for round 2 supposedly. So it's just pending on the weather. That it doesn't set them back too much. But I don't think I was talking to them, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue. So they should be on schedule to finish up.
Great. Anything else? Any other questions? No? Thank you, sir. Community development, economic development.
Good evening, mayors, trustees again. We actually have, new year, new projects or continuous projects. I think it's pretty exciting. That there's a lot of things going on. What we see, I think they're all positive, proactive things. Number one, comprehensive plan. I'm very, very, very excited about that. Everyone I speak with, I get a lot of walk-ins with the applications and the zoning permits and stuff, and every single one, how important it is, how they voice their opinion, and there's a website, they can go and submit their comments and concerns. Again, I want to reiterate that, how important the comprehensive plan is, and that's going to show what the community wants as far as which direction we want to go. Now the holidays over, there's a lot more, there was every time, the 2 times that I've been here around the holidays, it slowed down a little bit, holidays, obviously people thinking about holidays, they're not thinking about, restoring their houses and stuff like that. But what that does, it kind of pushes everything back to the beginning of the year. Now we got new resolutions, and we got we have quite a few applicants coming in and submitting permits for some restorations, for some additions, or for some buildings. So with the new employee, Diana, again, she's helping out tremendously. But sometimes getting benefit from her, it's going to take me a couple weeks, so she gets kind of ball rolling. So I have to kind of explain to her exactly. It's obviously as expected, exactly how the process works, how we're going before she can start going and heading the direction that we need her to go. Mentioning her, she's one of the directions that she has right now is we do have, we got to get under control on the record keepings that we have. So there is a state statute that all municipalities need to follow, and that's what public records, how to keep them, and any of records that you can destroy has to go through a process. Right now, she's getting some information on that. She's going to have a presentation and do a proposal on our records that we have currently right now, which one's going to keep, how we're going to organize them, and such. Maybe up to include maybe some equipment. We do have a lot of plats, larger plats that we need to preserve. We would like to get them digitized. We'll put them in the computer somehow. We don't have scanners, we don't have printers and such. They're able to scan such large documents. So it's something that she's putting together with that. On one side, on the other side, obviously, she's working with me on the day-to-day things, the hearings. We have some hearings coming up, how to do the Open Meeting Act. We're going through all those things, so that way, she can kind of mirror what I'm doing, hopefully shortly, Very intelligent, very smart woman. So I look forward to continue working with her. I think she's going to do a great job. The other side of what we're working on also, that was the beginning of the year, is getting COG certified. I think she's going to play a key role in the certification because of her background and the requirements set by the state to be certified COG certified government. And what that's going to do is that's going to help us help the community with a lot of these restoring a lot of these historic buildings, private historic buildings that a lot of this funding you don't have to pay it back, right? And it's going to help them. Obviously, there's some requirements and regulations to follow, but I really think it's going to help a lot of the residents that we have now that are sitting on some of these historic landmarks or registry that need that help with that funding. I think it's going to be a positive thing, so I'm kind of excited to look forward to that. We did have a meeting today. Mike Taylor and one of the commissioners, he wanted to meet our new employee, Liliana, and he gave us a lot of good direction, got a lot of good information. Him being previous, working for SHPO and retired, and there's a lot of good information that he gave us a lot of direction that some contacts with the university, and such that we can hopefully once we again start going towards CLG certification, we can make use of it. The cell tower. There was a resident, I believe, Trina Miss Witter. She mentioned where we at with the cell tower. We did receive the plans through the modified plans through the cell tower. We did get some renderings off this, some pictures, and as it was discussed during the Board of Trustee Commission, myself and Mayor looked at them, and we did approve the plans. The cell tower picture rendering looks just like the old wooden cell tower. They're available. There's public records if anybody wants to look at them. Definitely, I can assist with that. But then, as far as when the construction is going to start, I do not have any information on that regarding that. So I know last time I talked to Mr. Graham, they were still working on some fine details. They didn't get into detail exactly what it was, but I could call them up and see how they're doing. Wish them best of years and see kind of get some information for you next time I approach them. Probably. Other than that, that's all I wrote. It's just time back for any questions. I feel like I'm missing a couple of things, but I'm here. You guys can have any questions or comments? Joe?
No.
You guys look like you got a question. Nada? What? Anybody?
You're off the hook tonight.
Yeah, but definitely, I think
That's great.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Finance department, you saw Gloria left. Unfortunately, she's feeling a little under the weather, so she did leave. I will say on her part, she did take vacation time. So I was very happy that she took vacation time and kind of forced her out the door to make her do it. So she did take a couple of weeks off to enjoy time with family and travel a little and do things that are good. So today was her first day back. So she was trying to recoup and do, but she was also under the weather. So that's why she stepped out. I will say though that in her absence that Brianna and Ashley to help out where and when needed. And that was good. Updates as well is that we did get Ashley for the oh my gosh, to look at the GRT as well as tax through TRD or Taxation and Revenue Department. So she now has the same certification that I do. So we're going to tackle all of the point that was brought up earlier, asking about the defining areas. We're going to ensure, well, TRD does have our current GIS mapped boundaries of the town. But that's where we have the biggest opportunity now that Ashley has a certification as well as me. We're going to be diving into some big numbers and reporting to really take a look at areas and businesses and how taxes being reported in specific, and hopefully see if we have issues and call out those issues and have those issues fixed. So that's our goal with that. So some good things that'll be coming in the very near future as well. And that's for finance, just a short view. Trustee Nevares.
Comments?
Yeah.
I just, I want to thank and commend the staff for the lights on the plaza. I think they were the best ever. And it was everybody that came to see and visited, they were impressed by the decorations. And hopefully we can increase that next year or this year at the end of the year. So hopefully, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Johnson Burek.
Yes, I was just saying, irregardless of the road and the incident that happened Christmas Eve, I still think that that was a huge safety concern with all the pedestrians there. And as law enforcement and fire, excuse me, and emergency rescue, if we put up those wooden barriers that we have, we can just easily move them in order to get through. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee. Trustee Cadena.
Mary Helen, I want to apologize for not mentioning that. It crossed my mind like several times, like we have the Taylor Historic Site here. You got to put it in there, but she's here and she's going to be there. And it is a big deal to us. We just didn't give it enough attention in this meeting. So we think we can bring people, it's really important, and we think we can bring people in just based on that. And if we can do anything, we need to include that in our comprehensive plan as a long-term thing that we'll have for a long time. The other thing is I do want to commend for Christmas Eve, but I'm sorry, every other night was great, having all those beautiful decorations. I happen to be more modest about Christmas, but for me and my kids that came into town, we liked just the Luminarias on Christmas Eve. It was so bright. You couldn't even see the Luminarias. We didn't have the same ambiance. It's like, turn the lights off. But that's because, I mean, we've been here forever. I mean, every other night would be great, but maybe on Christmas Eve when the Luminarias are everywhere, because the only place we could see the Luminarias is when we were walking down to get into our cars. I mean, I don't mean to poo-poo anybody, and I know the staff worked really hard on all those decorations, and I can tell that some people really love Christmas on this board right here. But if we could just keep that one tradition, I mean, it's just so, I mean, to have the candles that really, and just have the luminarias just on Christmas Eve, to me, otherwise we look like we could go to a small Kansas town or a small Texas town or a small New York town and see what we saw on Christmas Eve. I'm sorry to be a poo-pooer, but to me, Christmas Eve is about luminarias, not about twinkle. Sorry, but everybody did a great job and it was really beautiful. And I was just curious, Mary Helen, about the holidays and the Taylor Reynolds, I mean, the Taylor Historic thing. It was really got a lot of.
They would not allow us to put up the nativity. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't allow that because of certificate of occupancy.
Construction.
Safety.
Okay, well, that it was beautiful anyway, but have you guys had a lot of people through? Because it seemed like a lot of people were through that night. We went through that night, yeah.
I have the numbers at home because I wrote it down and I was amazed. Since we've opened, we've had
Tons of people.
coming through. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, brought a lot of people through myself, and every time I go in there, it's packed. So I wondered. Okay, good.
Any other comments?
That's all.
Thank you, Trustee. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm just excited to get this comprehensive plan going, and now that I kind of understand the direction that we're going in and what we have to ask and what we have to look out, now we can really dive deep into what needs in the nitty gritty and not just the overview. And that's all I have. Oh, and thank you for the nomination and the support for Mayor Pro Tem. I do think we gotta, as we move forward with the CLG and things like that, and us having certification and education, I think that should be a big part. As much as the opportunity should pass to everyone, there's people that have done it for many years, and there's people that haven't done it at all who have served on the board. So I think we should not make it such a personal preference and more of a education and moving forward and making this board more efficient, and like government changes constantly, and getting education on that is important as we move forward, not just with legislation, but laws and things that affect us as a small community. And that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You all know my list, so sit back. Hope you have a cup of coffee. I'll go through it quick. So Christmas Eve, just to touch on that Illuminatias were and are a huge part of that. And when I got to the plaza myself, the plaza was already packed by the time I got there to start going. And I'm thinking to myself, as it's starting to get dark, I need to turn these lights off around like we did when we did the Christmas tree lighting. But at that point in time, because we don't presently have everything marked appropriately within that panel, I would have been kicking off all the music and everything else if I would have tried to myself or Lorenzo to at least turn the lights off, the plaza lights off, which was an afterthought, and we've talked about that already in planning for next year, because it was bright with all the regular lights on in there, and that's what was bright, not the Christmas lights on, which I would love to say it was the Christmas lights, but it wasn't. So there was a lot of extra Christmas lights though, which is great.
Yes,
But for future, we will.
Every pole, the whole
Yeah.
kiosco was like.
Well, we're going to look at what it looks like in the future as well, because we've had the conversations to work with DOT to see, because I remember as well when we used to turn the lights off up and down the Avenida with all the Illuminatias going up and down the Avenida. So we'll look at that in the future and what that works out, but also work with public safety more than anything to make sure that we're meeting all the necessary requirements as well. So it's our my first Christmas, so quite literally. So we'll have some fun. We'll have some fun with it. Going through on just a few other things. Session does start up here within a couple of weeks, and it is a 60-day session. I only plan on personally going up there for probably 2 times for some some legislative stuff, as well as for municipal league and municipal days, and doing that. But for the most part, I've already had some great conversations with our local legislators that are within Mesilla, letting them know about our projects that we need to get funded, projects that we have that are standing that they've already worked on, and where our standings are completely all the way around on all of that. We do have some obligations that have already been set and some funds that have already been promised. So I'll just make sure that once we get there, we continue with that. So we should have a great session coming up with that. We are getting, with that in mind, Lorenzo did also bring up grant proposal season is open right now. So we do have the grants that we did submit already. Is one that was not submitted correctly last year by the engineer, unfortunately, because of some transitioning that they had internally and some oversight. And that was for the LGRF grant that you all already approved for the work to be done on Calle de Colon. So that was already just resubmitted since that was already approved. The other ones that we're looking at are ICIP project specific that are on the approved ICIP list and going after funding because we just had LGRF open, TPF opens next month. We have the Colonias Infrastructure Board. Their application and letter NOIs are due next or at the end of this week, right? No, the application's due in March, but the NOIs are due now. And I mean, I can keep going because preservation has a grant open that we're going to be going after for an update on the historic preservation. So all of these, there's so many grant opportunities that we're looking at, both from the state on the federal side because there's federal grants through which you'll see I submitted some NOIs as well for or letters of intent for the RTP through the MPO. So hopefully those applications are due at the end of the month. So I will try to get those grant applications submitted. So hopefully the MPO board will see those coming forward. So there's a lot of different funding areas that we're looking at and trying to get some of these projects funded. That's why it's important for community as well as electeds and everybody to be a part of this comprehensive plan and the planning that goes into this because it's really the way that we want to see Mesilla shape and kind of molded in the future with road projects being done, signage projects, whatever, infrastructure just in general. So keep up the communication and hopefully be a part of that tomorrow as well with the community meeting. We do start the budget process here within the next month because it is that time again already. So I will have an outline, a proposed budget timeline for our upcoming budgets and planning that I'll be bringing to you at the next meeting and just for communication and planning so you have that. We do have our website being worked on right now. We have another meeting with the organization that's working on it tomorrow in specific for more continued planning and communication and getting they're getting their back end done. The hope is to have that website launched by no later than mid-March. Tied into that website as well, one of the directions leads to kind of a project that's still open with the public safety side where we have cameras that are being, for safety purposes, will be installed on the plaza. I did ask for some contingency funding that is available for that grant. And so we're hopefully going to be moving through with the Department of Justice to receive extra funding to add extra cameras on the plaza for public safety. More than anything in those public areas, and hopefully we'll be looking at the other public areas around town, other parks, and just any area that is publicly owned, having some sort of camera for public safety and security. One of those cameras, like I mentioned, though, excuse me, on the plaza is going to be tied into at least one will also be tied into the website so that there will be a live view of what's happening on the plaza on the website.
Jeez.
So I want to bring that up. And there's so many other for the website. There's so many other, and we talked about it in detail in our lodgers tax meeting this last week. And there's so many other aspects that are being added and requested into this website to make it interactive. One of the neat things that we're having them look at is where the visitors, whether it be a visitor coming in or a visitor in our own town, will have the opportunity to potentially go in and build an itinerary off of the website. And with that itinerary build out, if you go to an example is if you go to Red River's website in specific, it has where you can go in and you can create, you're going to be there for 2 days. You can choose the places that have lodging. So we'll have, of course, our hotel on there, but we'll also have a listing of all of our short-term rentals that are on there as that opportunity. Have all of our businesses, whether it be a gift shop, a gallery, the museums, all of our restaurants, anything that has a business license with us specifically, as long as it's not within the residential area, of course, other than the short-term rentals, will be added in there so that guests can go in and create an itinerary, build out an itinerary of what they're doing here in the town and kind of plan out their stay, which is kind of a unique and fun feature that I think will be amazing once we get that going. But I wanted to share that because I think that website, once we get it done, is going to be a powerful tool in helping out with our residents. It'll help out with our business community and also our just our town as a whole. I think it'll help out with communication and the plans on that. And if you have ideas on what you would like to see or what the website is missing presently, please make sure you're sharing that. That way we can incorporate that into this build. But we do plan on having like separate pages for each and every department so that they'll have their specific updates or their specific social medias that'll be tied into that, just to share a little bit on that. With the comprehensive planning going on, to kind of touch on what Ms. Raichi talked about a little bit ago and asking about the historic site. I know that Danny has a meeting specifically tomorrow with members of the historic site to drive down on that and the importance of that as a key stakeholder. We did update a listing with Site Southwest for the key stakeholders on there in their deal or the Excel spreadsheet that they had sent, and we put the contact names of some of those people in there. So that was one of the main ones as well. And I know that they have that, but we'll also build on that spreadsheet as we continue moving on through this comprehensive planning process. But the site itself is a huge part of the community and will be a huge part of the community moving forward. To share some of those numbers that came about, we did, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what was shared at our last advisory meeting this last week is that they had in excess of 40,000 people that have gone into the visitor center since the visitor center has been open over the past couple of months. And those are just people that have been signed in. So who knows what that true number really might be, right? So that's quite a bit of foot traffic in there. That's very exciting for our community. So can't wait to get that going. To just talk on some of real quick to talk on some of the other areas here. So the drains that Ms. Raichi was talking about, the storm drains, I'm not sure about specifically, especially like the ones down over on this side. I will bring up to DOT. I know that there's the utility access that they're still got to bring up, and that's one of what DOT will be doing for sure. I will talk to them as well about the storm drains because I did notice one of them over here going when you leave town, especially has a big dip in it. I've already talked with them about the crosswalks too, because the crosswalks aren't presently painted on. We have, because of the type of striping that has to, and the paint that goes in there. That will be done when the weather gets just a little bit warmer out, because it has to be hot in order for it, or not hot, but it has to be a certain temperature outside in order for that to be completed. And unfortunately, given the past couple of weeks when they were planning on getting it done, the temperature took a dip. But also some other kind of exciting news on that part, and a conversation with DOT is that there's more and more talk about a hawk going in across the street here at Town Hall for the crosswalk. And a hawk is where we have the flashing lights that warn of a crosswalk. So that's something that I've been working on with DOT on that part. And then the other part with DOT that it has kind of been on the back burner that I had a follow up with today is the charging stations through DOT, and hopefully we'll be seeing that and hearing more about that within the next 2 weeks, is what I've been told, because they're working on those awards and award applications right now. So fingers crossed that we do get some of those going in. As it pertains to the public hearing for the short-term rental ordinance, we did already hold the public hearing per the statute a couple months ago when we did that for the original ordinance as it was presented. I'll see what that looks like to hold another public hearing with the finalized, if you will. It might not be the posted and publicized because we've already done that, but it'll at least be allowed and posted here within the community if we do move forward with that. But we did follow our statutory part of posting that and having that in legal notices and getting that taken care of last month on that part. I think we touched on everything else. So Ed, with that, let's see, notes. Good. And thank you for all the feedback that was given during public comment at any rate. We appreciate that. And if there is nothing else, I will say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I'm gonna go, 'cause they're like, it's bedtime, but it's birthday cake time. Hurry up. Gotta have birthday cake before bed. What's that?
Just having birthday cake.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that. Hold on.
Did you have a nice Christmas, Jerry?
Quiet Christmas.
Quiet?
Yeah.